I'm going to go ahead and welcome everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call the June 13th, 2017 Caroline County Board of Supervisors meeting to order. Just go through the supervisors that are here and present. From the Mattaponi District, we have Mr. Floyd Thomas. From the Madison District, we have Mr. Clay Forehand. From the Bowling Green District, we have Mr. Jeff Seeley. From the Reedy Church District, we have Mr. Reggie Underwood. From the Port Royal District, we have Mrs. Nancy Long. And I'm Jeff Black, representing the Western Caroline District. At this time, would everyone stand for an invocation led by Mr. Underwood?
Most gracious and Heavenly Father, once again we come before you asking for your blessings. Heavenly Father, we give thanks to you for all that you've done for us and all that you're going to do. I ask you, Heavenly Father, to put us on one accord, that we continue to do the business of the county. Bless those who serve at home and abroad. All blessings, all thanks, ask in your precious name. Amen.
Amen. Now, would the Boy Scouts come forward, please, to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, we are now to the segment of opening board comments. Mr. Thomas?
As a matter of fact, I do, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. And I wanted to write these down to make sure I was concise and precise. But yesterday, I attended the Virginia Department of Historic Resources unveiling of the Loving Marker in Richmond at the site of the old state courthouse. This program was attended by the governor, mayor of Richmond, several state and House members. The ceremony was highlighted by the Loving's desire and fight to, as Mrs. Loving told me herself, just get married and live at home in Caroline. This was a wonderful ceremony and a great tribute, but it had been changed to Richmond at the last minute. I needed to find out why Caroline missed out on this opportunity for positive exposure, and after the ceremony, I spoke to Peggy Loving Fortune, the sole surviving child of Mr. and Mrs. Loving. You may not be aware but Peggy and I have been friends for more than 30 years, and we served on the church trustee board together for at least 10 years. Peggy was very disappointed the ceremony was not held in Caroline at the location she had given DHR. She also told me that as the surviving child, she had all the authority for the family and none of her 3 children had been given authority to represent her. I know Peggy's shyness and her desire not to retell her story over and over, nor expose her family's personal business. While it is to us a story of triumph and overcoming the odds, the pain of remembering that your parents were jailed and persecuted just because they wanted to get married cannot be pleasant. Having been part of the Central Point community for most of my life, I understand some of the complexities of race, culture, and racial identity that exist there and, quite frankly, in other parts of the country. As defined by the Commonwealth at the time of the Loving case, Native American culture was not a consideration for racial identity. It was complicated in the 50s and 60s, and it actually remains so today. As is her prerogative, Peggy wanted her family identified as it was in the final text of the marker and was happy with the proposed marker. She was not the reason the program was changed from Caroline. According to the Department of Historic Resources representatives, the reason the marker was moved from Caroline to Richmond at the last minute was an email from Mr. or Mrs. Seeley. Both of those names appear in the email headers. Board members have copies of that email and were sent copies on 5/26. Again, according to DHR, the email was accompanied with threats to DHR representatives that funding would be pulled, as evidenced by the 3 House of Delegates members copied on the original email. This interference came after the board heard from Mrs. Loving's grandson at its May 23rd meeting, and even though he disagreed, he stated that his mother was in favor of the Caroline marker. It was assumed the marker would be erected and the program would continue in Caroline. Again, the decision belonged to Peggy Loving Fortune, not to any one of her 3 children, certainly not to any single board member, nor their unofficial proxy. We now have to rectify the situation and correct the ill will and confusion that came about from this interference. We also have to repair the damage created at the state level. This is not about representing a single constituent, inserting yourself into a family discussion, not about a political agenda or a shameful misrepresentation of authority. This is about 2 of Caroline's own that changed the nation, whether they wanted to or not, whether we agree or not. It is about Caroline recognizing a historical event and paying tribute to its native son and daughter and their love for each other. While we'll never be able to duplicate the ceremony in Richmond, Caroline needs to comply with the wishes of Mrs. Loving's daughter, place a marker at the original location in Caroline. It is Peggy's hope that this ceremony can now take place in July to commemorate the anniversary of when her parents were arrested and jailed. If not, then as soon as possible. We will need to work with GHR to fund another marker in the amount of close to $2,000. And additionally, we'll have to work with the Foundry to have one ready in time. I intend to work to accomplish the family's goals and hope the rest of the board will do the same. I'll submit these comments for part of our board minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Forehand?
Just wanted to provide a little bit of update on from the Fredericksburg Regional Alliance regarding business interest in the Fredericksburg region, which includes Stafford, Spotsylvania, the city of Fredericksburg, King George County, and Caroline County. As of this month, there are no buildings over 100,000 square feet available in the region, and as such, the influx of any business that would need such a building would be delayed significantly by development. There are only about 40 acres of pad-ready sites in this region, which includes Caroline County, which does, again, these are sites that are ready to be built on in a fairly short amount of time without a lot of design or utility work. I tell you this because Caroline itself has had some troubles with placing even some smaller manufacturing and businesses within the county, finding landowners that are willing to sell or divide their properties for 5, 10, 7, 8 acres, not the hundreds of acres that we typically have available to us. I say this because we have a need as a jurisdiction, as a county hoping to have some business growth to relieve some of our tax burden on us individuals, with some hopes that we can develop perhaps a public-private partnership. If there's a landowner out there that's willing to make the investments to make their property build ready, there are some opportunities that are coming on the horizon very quickly. I wanted to put this in the record and make it known so that if some folks are interested in that, Mr. Wilson, our Economic Development Director, can give you more details. But we would encourage it, and we could actually we hope for it in the very near future. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forehand. Mr. Seeley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to respond to Mr. Thomas's comments. Mr. Loving was the only person contacted by the Department of Historic Resources over the last 18 months. He's called me many times. He is a constituent of mine who called me with a constituent issue, and I afforded him the opportunity to be helped. Historic Resources contacted Mr. Loving on many, many times, and that's Mark Loving, the grandson, asking his permission for the text of the plaque over and over again. He stood here at the board meeting last month and said that he never agreed to the text that was on it, and as far as he was concerned, the plaque shouldn't go up. He did say that his mother didn't have an issue with it, but the Department of Historic Resources could never get his mother to return a phone call. They always contacted him. He contacted me over and over. The Department of Historic Resources emailed me individually and asked me some questions. I responded, and the answers are here, and I'll be glad to provide them to anybody, about the family's position, as I understood it from the grandson, who had called me repeatedly over 18 months. When a constituent comes to me with an issue, I'm going to respond to the constituent issue. That is what, as a representative, I feel I should do. Historic Resources made the decision on their own, and you can read the email for yourselves, of where the plaque was going. I never indicated that I had any preference or cared where the plaque went. It was purely Mark Loving's, he believed that his grandmother did not want that plaque, and he didn't believe what was on it, and he stood at the board meeting, which everybody can watch the video of, and said that. I was representing him and responded as such. I don't understand the threat to Historic Resources. The plaque was made. I don't know where the funding issue would come from. They've already had the plaque. It's been in storage. They've been looking for a place for that marker for the last 6 months, and they've contacted Mark many, many times about it. It was their decision to put the black plaque where they desired to put it. They were well within their right to put it in Caroline where they wanted it. They chose where to put it, not the Board of Supervisors and not me. I didn't make any decision for Historic Resources. All I did was answer their questions. They were asked me if I could get Mr. Loving to call them back. I talked to him several times. He had no further desire to talk to them. He'd said what he'd had to say over the last 18 months. They didn't cooperate with him, so he didn't cooperate with them. Sort of end of discussion. I've gotten to know Mark Loving as a volunteer fire department person at the Sparta Volunteer Fire Department. We've talked about this issue many times, and again, those were his wishes. Peggy Loving, to my understanding, had never communicated with the Department of Historic Resources. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley. Mr. Underwood?
Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman. I do have a couple of comments. First of all, I'd like to offer my condolences to First Sergeant Blydenberg, whose wife passed. He's the state police representative here in the county, so certainly offer my condolences to him. I think his wife was a state trooper also at one point, so certainly wanted to make the board aware that she did pass on. Second, at our last meeting, and I was listening to a couple board members, we get kind of heated up here sometimes, and we let our passion flow. I was listening to Mr. Seeley talk about his constituent had an issue, and he simply began to talk about it. And that's my position regarding the issue regarding towing. But I want to make it clear. I talked to Sheriff Lip over maybe a week ago, and he said some people felt I was beating him up a little bit or badgering him or being disrespectful to him. I'm a pretty passionate person about what I believe, and the sheriff is also. I'm a big guy. He's a big guy. If he says something that I don't agree with, I can handle it. Those of you who can't, bring some tissue and cry, but we can handle it. We're okay. I'm going to support the sheriff's office and what they do, and I'm going to, if I don't believe it's correct, I'm going to say I don't believe it's correct. That's what I do. Not going to change. I could say it a little easier, a little sweeter, but that may take some work. That's 65 years of being McGruff, I guess. But certainly we all could do better. But I never want to be disrespectful to anyone. But I want to make it clear that I will not tolerate racial slurs or comments from anyone. That I will not tolerate, because it has no place. We can disagree, because this is just a matter of whether you agree, disagree, be passionate. I don't really care. But the other comments have no place. So I said all that to say the sheriff does not work for the board. He's elected by the county residents. The funding for the sheriff's office comes through this board. So if we have to have people to do what we're asking to do, the money's going to come from somewhere. So However it falls, let it fall. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mrs. Long?
Good evening. First, I want to thank everyone that went out and voted today. You know, if we don't use our rights, well, we don't appreciate them, and we need to set the example. So thank you for all that went out in the heat and voted. If you didn't, you got a few minutes yet to make it there. I did want to say that it was my honor, sad honor, a few weeks ago to attend, along with Mr. Black, the funeral of one of our fire and Mr. Forehand, right, and Mr. Forehand, down in Richmond for the funeral. It was a lovely service, and I was very honored to see the turnout and the professional display of our emergency firefighters. They looked wonderful. They sat proudly. They sent him off in good taste and with well-deserved honor. So we remember him and his family at this time. And with that, we will move on to business.
Thank you, Mrs. Long. I only have a few. I just kind of want to reiterate what Mrs. Long said in regards to the service for firefighter Johnson. It was very powerful, very moving, and I heard the comments from different people that were there saying that they thought that was the best ceremony done that they've seen for a firefighter. So very, very impressive. So thank you, Chief, and your staff for putting that together. It was really very touching and very amazing. The second thing, I just kind of wanted to update the board on something. We had talked about, Mr. Underwood, your favorite subject, fireworks. We actually had a meeting with Dr. Parker and the Chamber of Commerce, and there's some charitable entities. The Chamber is trying to work with some other 501c3s to raise the money for the fireworks. They are trying to take this task on. They do understand that cost is going to be roughly $20,000 to $30,000. This would be for July of 2018, July 4th. However, Dr. Parker had talked about being open to bringing to his board, having the high school used as a facility for launching the fireworks. However, they will need something from us saying, for logistics, things like paying deputies, fire and EMS overtime. If we have to pay for buses because we don't have enough parking, they want to make sure that the county will be at least willing to, because that would be a significant additional cost to the charitable organizations to raise. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there for you guys and kind of maybe have you guys think about it over the next, couple meetings, so that way we're not having them raise money and then say, hey, by the way, we're not going to pay for that. So just kind of keep that in mind. With that, those are my opening board comments. We are now to amendments to the agenda. Are there any amendments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I would pose agenda item 11A, funding for the Department of Historic Resources, Caroline Marker for the Loving family.
Is there any other amendments to the agenda? If not, can I get a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the agenda as amended.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. We are now to presentations and reports. The first presentation is a recognition of Boy Scout Troop 1421 for the Mattaponi River cleanup. Gentlemen, if you don't mind, if you could come down to the microphone here for a minute, please? And Mr. Nunley, could you come down as well? I'm not sure which one of you gentlemen is the spokesperson. Okay, very good. And what is your name?
Hello, I am Noah Lowry, the SPL of Troop 1421.
Okay, very good, Mr. Lowry. Could you just tell us exactly what you guys did?
Okay, so we went down to the Mattapanai and the Conai River, and we cleaned it up, got rid of some of the garbage that was around it, trash, litter, such.
Now, did you actually go in the water? Did you use canoes, or did you just kind of do it from shore?
It was more along like the shoreline and like the marsh around it, stuff like that.
Okay, and did you guys get in through the boat launch area, or how did you guys get into the area?
It was, yeah, through the boat launch area by the boat. We went to 3 different areas.
Okay, so you went to 3 different areas, just kind of cleaning up that area. Did you find a lot of stuff?
Yeah, a lot of stuff, beer cans, different stuff.
All right, very good. Very good. Mr. Nunley, you worked with them, obviously? Yes, yes.
Yes, it was a pleasure working with these fellas and with the troop master and the parents that assisted that day. It was real work. They cleaned up. I think we had 2 truckloads worth of trash, about a dozen, maybe 15 tires.
Wow.
But they had fun, but we got all the work done, and it was nice to go back and see people using these sites and commenting about how nice it looked. So, a real pleasure.
Thank you. Mr. Lowry, step back up. I just wanted to, before I have a resolution here for you guys on what you guys did, and I saw some of the pictures. Probably, I serve on the Rappahannock River Basin Commission, and the stream sweepers came to us a couple of years ago with a presentation of what they do. And it's a lot of the later high school kids and college students who work on canoes in different rivers like the Rapidan in Virginia. And it really was amazing what they were pulling out of the rivers. It really was kind of neat to see that they were doing a cleanup. I myself am like fishing and so forth, and it just drives me insane when I'm canoeing or boating down a river and I see trash in a river somewhere, tires and so forth. It's just very, very frustrating. So I just want to say it's very honorable what you guys did, and keep up the good work, because that's something that you can see, and keeping those waterways and so forth clean only is a benefit to Caroline and the people who use them. So thank you, okay?
Of course, we'd be glad to do it again.
Yeah, please, please, please,
Maybe
feel
it could become a
free.
yearly project.
Feel free.
Mr. Nunley, were stream sweepers involved in this? I don't want to leave them off if they were.
Yeah, actually, stream sweepers really organized the event, and you brought some of the materials, gloves, the litter picker, upper things. Actually, Kevin lent us some of those things too. So it was a lot of people involved.
Mr. Chairman, before you read the resolution, may I ask Mr. Lowry
Sure.
a question? Mr. Lowry, you said before you were the SPL for the troop, and I was a Boy Scout 100 years ago, and I'd reached the high rank of tenderfoot. So you know that, yes, okay, the first one. What's the SPL?
The SPL is the senior patrol leader. So in our troop, we have 3 different patrols, and each patrol has a patrol leader. And above all of those, there's the SPL, the senior patrol leader.
Senior patrol leader.
And I have an ASPL, the assistant senior patrol leader, Wyatt Newman. And we work with the scoutmaster to help kind of govern the troop and guide the scouts.
All right, thank you very much. I still remember.
Mr. Nunley, thank you for helping that. Could you come down to the podium for a second? I've just got one question for you. We met with, I think you were in a meeting with stream sweepers. I guess we had a meeting with them last year at some point. If it was possible, could we bring them to a board meeting just to kind of have them give a presentation exactly what they do in different areas to Caroline sometime over the summer? I really think what they do is what we've seen through the Rappahannock River Basin Commission. I think it's very, very worthwhile.
Yep.
So if you could have them come, I would appreciate it.
Yep, we'll work with you on that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Nunley. All right, so now, gentlemen, I have a resolution, and we're going to have you, excuse me, we're going to have you guys come up and take a picture with the board after, okay? So we have a resolution here from the Board of Supervisors that says, a resolution commending Boy Scout Troop 1421 for its Mattapanai River Cleanup Project. Whereas 12 Scouts of Caroline County Troop 1421 dedicated their time on a recent Saturday to cleaning up debris in the Mattapanai River for an event organized by Stream Sweepers. And whereas the cleanup took place along the Stonewall Jackson Road, Page Road, and Nelson Hill Road river access sites in Caroline County. And whereas approximately 17 tires, a car bumper, an axle, many bottles, cans, trash, and a concrete bird bath base weighing around 100 pounds were removed from the river and taken to the landfill. And whereas by participating in this project, the Scouts demonstrated many impressive traits, including concern for their environment, cooperation, initiative, and a positive attitude. And whereas through their efforts, the Scouts have helped beautify and protect an important natural resource and performed a very valuable service to the citizens of Caroline County. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors hereby commends the Scouts of Boy Scout Troop 1421 for their hard work and community spirit and extends its deep appreciation for a job well done. Adopted the 13th day of June 2017. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you so much. Yeah, Mr. Lowry, if you wouldn't mind, thank you. Would you introduce some of your troop, some of the members you have here with you?
So I have Foster McCurtain, Wyatt Newman, as I previously stated, Thomas Biddulph, Brody Meddy, and Zach Roberts.
Well, thank you. If you guys would come up for a picture, we would appreciate it.
Would you like your troop leader to come with you?
Yes.
She didn't get
Yeah.
introduced.
Yes, bring.
And I know she was there, I saw her.
Yeah, good. Okay, gentlemen, if you can move over to my right, a little further. A little further, yeah, okay, that's good. Okay, let's see. Okay. Can you move over to my left a little? There we go. Okay.
You guys might as well move up as close as you want. It's gonna take him a while.
If he can turn around
Come
so
on,
we're
Stace.
a little closer together, you see what I'm talking about? There we go. Okay. There we go.
Yeah, he's gonna be a while.
All right. That's about right here. Couple kind of leave the blank.
down from one from the county? So we'll leave and then your parents are going to come up. Then you'll be done. Yes, that's right. There you go.
Okay, some to my left, some to my right, and if I don't like it, I'll move you around a little bit. Okay, ma'am, you're gonna, that's good. That's all, that's fine. No, okay, right, okay, turn right here. Okay, one fellow, or lady with the black, can you, a little to my right? Okay. More to my left, move an inch to my, no, not you, okay. Okay, you can move over again, there we go. And let's see. I hate to do this, this fellow all the way to the back, can you come forward? And, there we go, that works, right? Okay. Now, I don't see all of you, ma'am. A little to my left, and, yeah, so I can see her. Good. All right. Okay, nice smile right here. We're gonna take a couple, just like before. And one more, and I'll let you go. Thank you.
These will be up on the website.
Good, Mark?
There are also individual letters for the boys. So make sure you get them.
I thought you had to be 11 to be a Boy Scout. What?
All right. Okay, next up on the agenda, we have a presentation from Mr. Tim Ware regarding the George Washington Regional Commission.
Good evening. Let's keep the excitement going. Mr. Thomas, I too was a tenderfoot,
Yeah, very good, very good.
but I'm proud to say my son was an Eagle Scout. So what I want to tell these guys back here is, keep it up, become an Eagle Scout. What you think you're doing, thought you just picked up a few tires and a bird bath, what you're doing is very important for the community. Keep it up. These fellows up here need you. Well, thanks for giving me a few minutes to come and tell you a little bit about what's been going on at the George Washington Regional Commission. I'd like to thank Ms. Long and Mr. Black for serving as on our board this year. Mr. Black is the chair. He's got one more meeting. But who's counting, right? But what I want to do tonight is, most of you up here really understand what the George Washington Regional Commission is all about, but maybe the people behind me don't. As a matter of fact, you know, I've been in this business 25 years, and I'm not so sure my wife knows what I do for a living. Asked my son one time what his dad did for a living, he said he just goes to meetings. Okay, what is the George Washington Regional Commission? In a few words, we were created by the Virginia General Assembly, and we've been around since about 1961. We're one of 21 planning districts in the state, and we comprise what you have often heard as Planning District 16, Caroline, King George, Spotsylvania, Stafford, and the city of Fredericksburg. And our number one job at the George Washington Regional Commission is collaboration. We collaborate with all of our member governments. You're our boss. And we offer these core competencies that you see here: facilitation, partnership development, on and on and on. And our staff members have a variety of skills. Many are seasoned planners, accountants. We have transportation professionals. We offer data analysis and mapping, financial management, grant writing and administration, legislative prioritization, ordinance reviews, program development and implementation, and project management. As you can see, that some of the things, just a few examples of what we do. We are environmentally friendly at the George Washington Regional Commission. We participate in the hazard mitigation plan. Rural transportation that encompasses the counties of Caroline and King George. The city of Fredericksburg and Stafford County and Spotsylvania County are members of a Fredericksburg Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, or FAMPO, as you may have read in the newspaper. GW Ride Connect is I can actually say this is a nationally recognized rideshare program that we have, providing ride sharing and van pooling services for our region. We currently have about 400 vans that originate in this region. Not only is the staff doing a great job with it, this is pretty much what you would expect where they would come from, going north of 95. And then, as I said earlier, the most important thing we do is a convener of the region. Show you a little bit of what our staff is. We don't have a big stable up in Fredericksburg. We basically have about 11 and a half full-time equivalents that are serving our member governments, with the majority of them coming in FAMPO, which is the MPO, as well as the GW Ride Connect. As you see that little asterisk down in planning services, when I came to town about 5 years ago, the commission was facing some financial hardships. One of the areas where the money was really sort of flowing out of the system was in planning services, trying to keep one or more full-time planners busy. So one of the things that I did when I came in is the person who was our planner retired, and we brought on an on-call consultant who basically I call when I need them. So I'm not paying for anybody who is just sitting at his desk more. We're only paying for planners that actually have jobs to do. Our total budget that I hope to get approved next week is $3.1 million. Just give you a little indication of where that funding comes from. Federal funding through the Commonwealth of $2.1 million, state funding of $673,000. State technical assistance, this is the only money that's actually allocated to planning district commissions. We received $75,971, as do 17 of the other planning districts. 3 in the Commonwealth, the Northern Virginia, Richmond, and Hampton Roads received more than the $75,000. And then we have some other income that may come in through fees, etc. What you pay as a member, and I appreciate you being a member, you don't have to be. You contribute 63 1/3 cents per capita for our funding. Hopefully you can see that. I want to give you a little bit of our discretionary spending. Most of our funding comes through the grants, but it goes directly back out. Based on the 63 cents per capita, our due structure for the 4 counties and the city of Fredericksburg is $225,499. As I mentioned before, the state piece is given to us $75,971. Gives us $292,331 for discretionary spending. Now, if you look at the uses, those 4 items, GW Ride Connect, FAMPO Planning, and Homeless Services, $220,000 of that $292,000 is already committed before it even touches our hands in the form of having to match grants for the services that we do provide, which leaves us a remaining of $82,000 that we can possibly play with. That amount would go to our fund balance, which is fairly low. Hopefully by next year, we'll have it up to about $250,000, which pretty much just allows us cash flow. If it gets much higher than that, then it's time to start looking at the dues and seeing how we can reduce them to give that money back to you. During the past several months, during a strategic planning session with our board members, there were two main initiatives that they assigned me and the commission to look at over the next year and more. Number one, and you can probably understand, regional access to affordable and adequate broadband. As you all know, especially here in Caroline, that is an issue. You get a couple miles off of 95, it's an issue for our whole region, quite frankly. The second one is we were to become a major partner in the opioid epidemic solution, which is one of the governor's initiatives as well as in the federal level. As we got looking into that, we found that there was already an initiative in place that's starting by the Rappahannock Area Community Services Board and the Hospital Foundation. So we are just tagging on with them to hopefully bring that issue to light within the region and possibly finding solutions to the epidemic. I also wanted to give you just an indication of what you fund us at $19,165. Just wanted to give you a couple of examples of how have we funded initiatives here in the county that are different than what we do in our regular work program. We assisted with the town of Port Royal and their pier extension and the water trail through our coastal zone management program of about $65,000. We also continue to provide funding for the commuter lot in Ladysmith, which is not part of the regular work plan of GWRC and has to come through the GWI Connect funding. We did some work again through coastal zone management of forest retention data gathering on the Mattaponi. We helped you last year with the environmental chapter for your code of ordinance. And finally, the historic designation for Meadow Park. That program was, we pretty much did not have someone who was hired to do historic preservation, but we happened to have a staff member who had in the past. She helped the folks out at Meadow Park get that designation, and it happened, I guess, about, well, time flies, but 1 or 2 years ago it was done. And actually that whole program won an award through the National Association of Development Organizations, and we're so happy to have helped with that. And what you have here is just the annual work plan. This is not pretty much designated just for Caroline County, but what we were doing for the entire region. As I mentioned earlier, the GWI Connect, the Rural Transportation Planning. We provide homeless services for citizens on a regional basis. Last year, we provided services for 53 of your citizens from 40 different households who says that their primary residence was in Caroline County. We're in the process of finishing up our all hazards mitigation plan. Hopefully that will be signed, sealed, and delivered by the end of July. And then we also offer facilitation for our CAOs, emergency managers, farmers markets, regional planners, etc. Do you have any questions for me?
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Ware? Mr. Forehand? Just
Any initiatives besides the opioid? Anything coming out that we should be aware of or sign up and get behind?
Well, I spoke to you several months ago about the Go Virginia initiative that GWRC is a support organization. And as I told you back then, that's a bigger regional effort with Northern Neck as well as the Middle Peninsula PDC. We're in the process now of putting a strategic plan together. Actually, the budgets were approved by the state board today. So we're able to go ahead and have that done. It's going to be a really quick process of about 2.5 months. And just to let you know that the regional council, which comprises those 3 PDCs, will be having their the regular meeting here in Caroline County on the 29th. We will be meeting at the Bowling Green Town Hall. And then immediately after that, probably around 2 o'clock, there will be a stakeholders town hall meeting there also where all your citizens and elected officials get to come and see what's happening with that strategic plan and to offer your feedback on what you would like to see in it. That strategic plan is looking to come up with industry clusters where we can hopefully be able to provide higher paying jobs for the citizens in our council.
What was the date and time on that again?
The regional council meeting will be 11 o'clock on the 29th of June. And then the stakeholders meeting will be around 2 o'clock. And I'll make sure I get all the information out to Mr. Cully on that also.
And that's stakeholders for not just Caroline, but all of the jurisdictions
Well,
within the
we'll be
village?
having 6 stakeholder meetings. We'll be having 2 in each one of the PDCs.
Okay.
We'll also be having one in the GWRC region that evening in Fredericksburg.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Mr. Seeley?
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Underwood? Mrs. Long?
Just want to thank you for the hard work you do. For those of you, Mr. Black asked me, the Port Royal Water Trail. If you didn't see the pier, they had a fishing day down there. The Friends of the Wildlife Refuge ran it, had like 37 kids and their parents. They all fit on that pier. Todd wasn't with us, so we didn't catch many fish, but they had a good time, and it was well done. And I want to thank the Friends of the Wildlife Refuge for organizing that for and the town of Port Royal for doing that. You want to know what the water trail is? It is a series of signs that you can follow showing markers where you can canoe or kayak. There is an area on the Wildlife Refuge where you can pull your canoe or your kayak up and tie it, and then you can hike the paths of the Wildlife Refuge. There are some platforms for bird watching or wildlife viewing, and just you can make the day as long or as short as you want. So if you want to get out on the river this summer, please take advantage of that.
I have no questions. I just want to make a statement. I really, a lot of people ask what GWRC does, and sometimes at some of the meetings can get a little drawn out with some of the presentations. But I do want to say that when it comes to actually services that are provided, I know for like the district, Mr. Forehand's district, and probably Mr. Thomas's district, my district especially, that commuter parking lot, which is over in the Ladysmith professional area, is a big help to those people, and that was something that was started, a couple years back, and you guys were really influential in helping out with us. And if there's more commuters that use that, it's grant money that's available to Caroline County that's paid to the business owner that really helps those commuters kind of. It's a safe parking lot, and it's just a nice service that GWRC provides. So I know the other thing we had talked about, and I think Mr. Seeley had been working on this, and you guys as well as the farmers market here in Ladysmith using the debit cards and so forth, those EBT cards. Is that in place now, or are we still a couple months away?
Yeah, I don't think it's in place yet.
It's not in place yet, but will it be in place? Will that be in place before the season ends?
Hope so.
Okay. All right. All right. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, we have appointments. The Rappahannock Area Community Services Board. Do we have?
Well, it's a shame to be losing Mr. Samuel. He has been a long dedicated member to the Rappahannock Area Community Services Board as the Board of Directors, but I see that another longtime member that has worked very diligently there is Mr. Al Collins, and he has put forth the name of Diane Dybel to be the new member. I understand that Mr. Warren is term limited at this point, so he has to exit the board. So I would make a motion that we appoint Diane Dybel as suggested.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Okay. Next up, we have the consent agenda. Is there anyone who would like to pull any of the items A through J? I'll ask you again. Is there anyone who would like to pull any of the items A through J? Yes, okay, very good. It's actually not the warrants. I'm not pulling A. I would like to pull letter C. I am going to pull letter C.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of C.
Okay.
I'll second that.
I have a motion, a second for A, B, and then D through J. A motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. The motion carries. Mr. Fincham. On agenda item C, and I was looking at this on the consent agenda. Can you tell me, like I see, for example, Moores Mill Road, what district is that?
Reedy Church,
Okay. Antioch,
Mattaponi, 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 Bowling Green, Mattaponi, and Bowling Green.
the only reason why I'm asking is I thought we had had a discussion maybe when it came down to, we were talking about financing and so forth, and it came down to, I mean, I think we all have, I don't think it's, I'm not disagreeing that any of the properties on there have a property maintenance issue. That's not what I'm saying. Is, you know, I'm just saying, like, we had had a discussion several years ago that we were going to do, to make it equitable, fair, we were going to do 2 per district. And, you know, there's nothing from Port Royal District on there. There's nothing from Western Caroline District on there. And, you know, not that I go around my district looking for violations, but I have no doubt that I have 0 property maintenance violations in the Western Caroline District. I guess that's my concern.
Yes, sir. I would remind you that as with zoning violations, we operate on a complaint basis. These reflect the complaints that we have in our file at this point in time. There are a couple that came in late last week and did not make it into the file today. But these are the ones that we have, that we've investigated based on complaints, and we're ready to bring forward to you. We can certainly ride around the county
No, it's not, yeah, okay.
and take a more active approach, because you're right, we did have that discussion a couple of years ago related to property maintenance, structures, et cetera, et cetera. And we can do that for a future meeting.
Okay. I just,
Chairman?
yes.
And I recall that conversation a few years ago, and I think you have this is not a list you really want to be on, but I think you have, and probably Mr. Forehand have the distinct advantages of having small compact districts, which have very large subdivisions, which are well-maintained, and the rest of us have sprawling areas that do require a little bit. I'm sure there's some in Port Royal, they just haven't reported those. But we will probably have more than you will, trust me. And again, it's not something I want to have, because this is not a good list to be on. It's like the worst plays in baseball. I don't want to be
Right.
on that list.
Yeah, I got to be honest, I don't go driving around, and I'm not trying to debate you here. I don't go driving around my district outside, you know, because I live in an HOA, so the HOA takes care of a lot of the property maintenance issues within.
That's
But I will say that if you leave the district and head towards Spotsylvania, it is quite large. It is not a tiny area west of Lake Landor. Some of those roads, Anderson Mill Road, and some of those roads are long, and I think that the size of the district is probably comparable outside with some of the other districts. I'm just saying, I just feel like, as far as if we're going to spend the money, we should do it, you know, in an equitable fashion.
Right.
And I thought that was a discussion we had had.
We are not yet at the point where we're asking the board for any funding for these. My guess is that 7 of the 8 properties on here will end up being taken care of before we have to come back to the board. In this case, unlike a zoning violation, which the letter comes under my signature, under the property maintenance code, the official violation notice has to come from the Board of Supervisors through the county administrator. So we are at the stage now with this where under a zoning violation, I would be signing the violation notice and sending it out to the offending party. That's the equivalent of where we're at right now.
Okay.
Is that a state mandate or is that a local requirement?
That's the way the county code is written.
I just,
Can I interject?
yeah, you go for it.
My take on this is you address these where you find them regardless whose district it's in, just like we address speeders where we find them. Or stop sign violators where we find them, in my case. And to me, I would like for us to, at least have the discussion about letting you engage in your role without these coming through us. I see this no different than a health code violation or a fire egress violation from the building official, things like that. And I don't know if it's permissible in the state code, but to me, I think
I think it's permissible. I think at the time the code was written, you could rack up some pretty hefty expenses if the county has to go in, demolish a structure,
Put a
clean
lien
up
and things like that.
a quote-unquote junkyard or something like that that's not permitted. And I think the reason it was written that way was to make sure that there was funding there and it went through the appropriate process versus going out.
Finding everything you can and creating a large bill. for the
Creating a
town.
large bill, yes, sir.
Okay, understood.
Mr.
makes sense.
Cullen.
We could look at amending the ordinance where we could initiate the violation letter, bring that back to you before we were going to have to take any action to actually spend funds and clean a place up. So like this list, you might end up with most of them gone before it actually got to you, so only the bad one that wouldn't clean up would be the one that would come. So that might be a way of, amending the ordinance to take that burden off. We could send a violation letter, see who cleans up, and then if they don't, then it comes back to the board.
I'll solicit my peers on the board. I mean, do you want to see these at this stage, or would you be more interested in after the initial letter goes out and we have non-compliance and we have a compounding issue versus the initial, just looking to streamline as best we can and speed this process up so we have results faster than waiting on our one board meeting a month in some cases, so.
You want him to have the authority to go
Send
for
a letter
Right.
of non-compliance. If that's, again, we can discuss it more in depth at a meeting. I'm just looking at a way to streamline and.
I thought that was the process. Mr. Black, again, this points out the need for us to have some sort of fines for multiple offenders, because I've got some that aren't on this list that have been repeat offenders, and we've cleaned them up, gone back, and the county's cleaned it up, and I think in most cases the county was paid back, but the fact that we have to keep going, we need some sort of teeth in the ordinance because it just gets through. And the last thing is, there's no way this first one is ever going to be cleaned up because it's structurally unsound. So just looking at the pictures, you can't clean that up.
That's the one that.
Yeah,
On-
okay. Because I didn't think you cleaned that one.
Look,
Okay.
Mr. Fincham, I've just got one more question.
Yes, sir.
On the grass cutting, because we went through this before, when you send a violation on the grass cutting, it's my understanding, because I have that one in my district that drives me, the one we always talk about, there's just one that we always talk about, and it's I can't wait for winter for that concern, so at least it's cut, and we don't have to worry about it, but, when you send a letter to these people on the grass cutting, and if they refuse, the only thing you can do is send a fine, right? You can't send anyone onto that property to cut it, correct?
Yes, sir. All the properties with weeds and tall grass are residential or commercially zoned properties. Those are, an agricultural property, in our case, rural preservation, is not qualified
Okay, so
for
it's the
enforcement
agricultural, right,
under,
yeah, okay.
under.
So if it's a
state code.
residential, you can, but if it's that's.
Residential,
okay.
commercial, industrial, yes,
Right,
sir.
okay. All right, I'll make a motion to approve agenda item C.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right, we are now ahead of schedule, so we will go ahead and go on to We'll go to Mr. Donnell. Why don't we go to agenda item, just got the list. Number 5, discussion of the Recreation Advisory Committee. Mr. Howard?
Mr. Chairman, good afternoon or good evening to all that are here today.
You need to turn that up. You're tall.
Yeah.
There you go.
Good evening, okay? Good evening, Mr. Chairman and Board of Supervisors. I'm here to give you an update on the Recreation Advisory Committee. Give you something here. The committee, since June 2016, we've had 7 total meetings, with one of the 7 scheduled total meetings, and there's one that was canceled during that time due to the lack of attendance. Outside of the Parks and Recreation staff and Mr. Forehand, Board of Supervisor representative, we have an average of 2 out of 9 appointed members that have been attending on a regular basis. Each meeting, I go about establishing the agenda for the meeting. However, due to the lack of attendance, we've been scarce when it comes down to gathering up minutes for the meeting. During the time of the meeting, I made several efforts in trying to encourage the members to participate. We've adjusted the time. We have been meeting. We started out meeting at 7 o'clock p.m. We went, the most recent meeting, we went back to 6:15. However, we didn't see any results from that either. I am getting feedback from the members, and some are saying they will be attending. However, when the time comes, they do not show up. The time that we do meet, we do have productive conversation going on. I've had, in our last discussion, with the meeting we had in early part of this month, we talked about possible ways to motivate the committee, get them all in attendance and so forth, and there were some discussions that were had at that time. We talked about maintaining the appointees, the Board of Supervisors appointing members. We should continue to do that. In addition to the Parks and Recreation Director utilizing the Board of the committee members a little more frequently, as far as involving them in some of the day-to-day stuff, just to try to keep them actively involved in the recreation along the way, and that may encourage them to attend more frequently. The other thing is to involve outsiders. The discussion led to perhaps, since there is, we're scarce with getting the members to come, possibly just opening the committee up and allowing others, whomever, depending on if there's a specific topic that we're in discussion of, that we allow them to just come in, have an open public meeting. Some may be interested in particular topics or discussions revolving around recreation, and just allow them to come to the meetings for those particular subjects. There was some discussions there. The lack of strong attendance has often prompted consideration for dissolution of this committee, and rightfully so. However, understanding the advantage of including the general public input into advancement of public recreation, I would like to see the aforementioned things suggested given by the committee implemented over the next year to see if it's we should continue to go forward with the committee. But I would state that while when we do get participation, the committee has been good providing input. They have great potential. However, there are some busy schedules that have gotten in the way of others attending. But they do call me. They do give me some feedbacks through email and whatever, just letting them know. But sometimes they just do not show for whatever reason. And some are legit reasons, some family issues and so forth. So, but that's where we are right now with the committee.
Mr. Howard, before I open up for questions, could you possibly email us, because there's 9 members on that? Was that? No, There's 9 members on that committee, I believe, correct?
That is correct.
And one for each district, and I think there's like at-large. Yes, okay.
There are 2 at-larges, and we do not have a school rep and a student rep. We do not have that field
Okay.
right now.
All right. Could you email us as far as who regularly attends? And I mean, that would be a big bonus. If someone is not regularly attending the meetings, I'm sure Mr. Forehand and I know if I can speak for myself, there's people in the district that are very interested in some of the programs that the county offers, especially with the money that's been pumped into the Old Lady Smith Elementary School, the track and the basketball court and so forth. And I know you have programs. The county's now kind of controls half that building or pays rent on half that building. So, so if you could kind of email us, because I think to me, I think it's a needed board, and people that come in with different ideas.
And Mr. Howard alluded to it. We have a wide range of topics, and it's not something, in my year and a half on it, it's not something that we voted. We didn't vote to do things. We were, which would lend itself to having an appointed board of specific voting members. But what we're looking for is feedback, ideas, getting energy, and if it takes us to change the charter or change the structure to get more people in the door, to provide that feedback, provide those ideas, to get a larger footprint involved, and that's what we're looking at. Because we might have the whole, do we give trophies to everybody? That's a big topic right now, and I have my own opinions on that. But I would, before we go that step, be something that, all right, let's hear from you, and advertise that on a quarterly. Say, hey, parents that have children in recreation, we're going to talk about this topic or these 6 topics or whatever it may be. We want to hear from you on what we prioritize our recreation money on, and if we can get 10 people versus the 3 that we're getting, I see that as a big win. Again, we're not voting. It's more of a brainstorming. We hash out ideas and things like that. So again, I'm not certain where to go with it, but that's where we are, and that's some of the thoughts behind it.
Is an agenda put out beforehand, like a week before the meeting, kind of like our agenda is put out?
Yes.
And where would you find that?
Well, I pretty much just email it to those who are.
To just the members?
Yeah, to the members, yes.
Is that something, like, I don't know when you meet again, but is that something that you could send out to the Board of Supervisors as well, so maybe that we can get information out to the public?
Absolutely.
I know a lot of people don't show up to meetings, but if sometimes if something affects them, if they see something that concerns them, they will call us kind of as a reaction after, but maybe to help them become, hey, if you complain, here, become proactive. One of those things, so at least we can get it out, some information out to some people, say, hey, look, there's a Recreation Advisory Committee meeting, just something to think about. So, appreciate it.
I guess I have a...
Go ahead.
Are they aware, is the committee aware of the work that's been done, the basketball courts, the track, the tennis courts that are coming? Because that's all part of Parks and Rec, some of the work that's going on at the park. Has that been discussed at your meeting so that they're all aware of sort of what direction everything's heading? Or did they have input to that?
Yes, they do. They are aware of it, and they provide a lot of input towards that. So when that was initiated, when I brought that in, they had a lot to do with that. The discussions and the projects and all that. So I normally try to keep them updated on what is going on with the recreation facilities at each meeting.
Because they also, you've got the sound baffles in the gym. There are a number of things. So there's been discussion at the meeting about all of those sort of upcoming kinds of improvements, and they've had say on all that. And I've always thought that maybe that was the inhibitor, is they didn't think they had input on those kinds of projects.
No, since we've made that kind of investment, they've been aware of each meeting that we've had. I keep them current as far as what's going on. So that has not been an issue at all.
For example, the fence around the soccer field was one of the items that was brought to us. Hey, this is an overwhelming need for this. You know, what may not have been on the radar of staff, but that was something that came in. You know, the seating and the landscaping of the actual turf fields and things like that we have everything to do. I guess we're waiting for fall at this point, but there's been some things like that. We got initially floated the idea for the lighting on the basketball courts at CT Smith in this group, and that was a resounding yes. You know, if we can swing that, you know, take this to the board, you know, make the request, that type of stuff. But, so yes, I'm backing up what Mr. Howard said. There has been some good discussions on that.
I think Mr. Thomas was next, then Mr. Underwood.
Thanks, sir. That's fine. That's fine. Mr. Howard, it's not you, but you have had this problem since I've been on the board and since you've been the Recreation and Parks Director, right?
That is correct.
So I think it's time to stop doing the same thing, expecting different results. Why don't we just have like, what do you call them, town hall meetings for Parks and Rec? And then you can get input from what everybody wants, and they won't necessarily feel like they have to be committed every month and things come up, or every other month is what you meet now. But if you did that, you could hear from more people without a doubt. And especially if you did one on Tuesday night at the gym over here, you'd hear from a lot of people. So there's different ways. We've done this for 20-some years. And this is not the first time he said nobody shows up. We appoint different people, you get 2 or 3. So the definition of insanity is doing the same thing, expecting different results. So let us try to do something different maybe and open it up. You'd have to advertise and publicize and send notes home with the kids and say, you know, July 18th, whatever that is, we're going to have a town hall for Parks and Rec. And you may get 20 or 30 people. Otherwise, you get the same 2 and nothing gets done. But I'll be here next year when we do the same thing.
Mr. Underwood?
Mr. Howard, I was just wondering, I think you have 2 or 3 members that come more frequent than others.
That is correct.
And maybe we could put together a steering committee of those folks.
Yeah.
And then
Let them be in charge.
let them be in charge of the town hall and put that information out, that we will at least have a nucleus of folks who are interested and can listen to the majority of issues or concerns or needs for Park and Rec. Take some pressure off you so that you don't have to bear the whole brunt of the situation. And I think we just open up to the community. I think that's the only way we're going to, we want to give our districts a voice, but if they're not going to actively participate, then we need to go another route. So certainly want to give you the support you need to run your programs effectively.
Ms. Long?
Donnell, I would ask, how often do you all meet or attempt to meet?
We actually went from quarterly to bi-monthly.
Okay. I would suggest that I agree with opening it up, inviting other people to come. If you want to keep your committee of however many there are, or if you want to size it down to a more elite group, I don't care, just so it gets done. But I do want to suggest that you send notices home with the schools, with the students, like you do for your special events, that perhaps we can put a small notice in the Caroline Progress. But I also think it's worth trying rotating your location. This is a big county, and especially at night, a lot of people don't want to drive from here to there, or from there to there, but if you rotate your locations, you might get some different inputs on from different family members. So that would be a suggestion I would have.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who has any comment, concern? Thank you, Mr. Howard. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, we have, you guys want to go break? Okay, we're right up against the break, so we'll take a 10-minute earth time. 10-minute supervisor time, we'll see you back at 8. But anyway, so 10-minute earth time, break. Yeah, 10-minute earth time, okay. We'll be back around 7:30. I'm going to go ahead and reconvene the Board of Supervisors meeting. At this time, we are to the public comments section. If anyone would like to talk about anything that is not a public hearing, I know in a minute we'll have the public hearing on the Fred transportation system. So if anyone would like to talk about anything that does not deal with that topic, you have 3 minutes, so just come down and state your name and your voting district. So at this time, I will open the public comment period. Is there anyone who would like to talk about anything that is not a public hearing?
Kevin Whiteman, the building official. I just want to let you all know I got an email today from Russ Williams over at MCD, and they've got considerable more work, and they've won some contracts, and they're going to be hiring 60 people this summer. So he contacted me because he wants to get some of our Caroline County high school kids in the program, start out as an apprenticeship, go up to electrician and master electrician, and be a long-time employee with MC Dean. So I got a hold of Doc Parker, and he got his assistant superintendent on it. So they're mind melding and getting some of our graduates qualified and over there.
Could you,
60 jobs.
that is excellent news. Could you forward that email to the Board of Supervisors so that way we could get word out as well?
I think I deleted it. I think my secretary has it.
I appreciate it, Mr. Whiteman. I appreciate that. Thank you.
It might be best to go through econ, honestly. If
Yeah.
we can get something from them, go through press release,
EDA.
something like that.
Yeah, Mr. Wilson, if you could work on that, that's a great idea. And then send that on to us. And at the same time, speaking about that, just briefly, if you could also send us those economic development things you're doing in housing as well. Keep on. I would appreciate that. Yep.
Can I ask
Okay.
Mr. Whiteman a quick question on that note?
Sure.
Mr. Whiteman, you said the apprenticeship program, that's the full IBEW 5-year electrical apprenticeship program, or?
No, that would be through MC Dean's, how they have their people work, but getting the hands-on training, and that would qualify them to test for their certification.
Right.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
Okay, just wanted to make sure, because I knew that was a 5-year program. Yes, sir. All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Whiteman. Is there anyone else who would like to speak on anything that is not public hearing? Ask one final time. Is there anyone who would like to speak on anything that is not a public hearing? With that, I will declare the public comment period closed, and we will now move to the public hearing. Tonight's public hearing is a consideration of the reduction or elimination of the Fred Transit service in Caroline County. Mr. Parton, I think you are the one who's handling this.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. As you are aware, there was discussion during the FY18 budget process about the possibility of either substantially reducing or eliminating funding for the Fred Transit System bus service here in Caroline County. No decision was reached prior to the adoption of the budget, and as a result, the adopted FY18 budget contains full funding of $102,254 for Fred bus service. However, that was with the understanding that the topic would be revisited later, and that's the purpose of why we're here tonight. Fred does receive substantial funding from the federal government, and as a result of that has to comply with their guidelines, one of which is to hold a public hearing anytime you're considering major reductions in service. Tonight's public hearing has been properly advertised both by Fred and the county, and we're here tonight to hear comments from the public. There are a number of written comments that were received that are included in your board packet. We do have several members of Fred staff here with us tonight, including Director Wendy Kimball and Assistant Director Rodney White. And I understand Mr. White will give a brief background introduction, if you would, before we open up the public hearing. With that, I'd like to call Rodney White up to the podium to address you.
Thank you, Al. Mr. Chair, members of the board, it's good to be here before you this evening and allow us to discuss Caroline Fred Transit Service. just to kind of give you some background on why we're here. Just to kind of give you an introductory, it's been a pleasure for Fred and an honor to safely and efficiently provide Fred Transit service to Caroline County residents. We've been here providing service since March 2002. We've provided more than 113,000 trips to the county residents over that 15-year span. Service has grown and contracted over the years as a function of mobility, needs of the citizens in the county, and budget challenges facing the county. We believe that there is a continuing need for transit service in Caroline County. The Board of Supervisors, in exercising its responsibility to set budget priorities for the county, is reviewing Fred's service. Fred understands this and is willing to work with the county to review this and the routes that we provide to you. Under the current agreement, Fred Transit operates 2 routes in Caroline County. The first being the C1 route. It operates 12 hours per day, Monday through Friday, within Caroline County in the Bowling Green and Carmel Church area. One of the trips is to Fredericksburg, brings it into our main station to allow people to transfer to go to other parts of the city, whether it's for medical reasons, shopping, or just to want to get out of Caroline, just visit the city in general. The second route is the C2. It operates 4 days a week. It operates 4 hours per day, 5 days a week also. It makes a connection with C1 in the Thornburg area, and it also transports people into the city of Fredericksburg also. The C1 and C2 schedules are coordinated to allow citizens from Bowling Green and Carmel Church areas to connect with Fredericksburg several times a day. C1 and C2 work in tandem to provide both intra-county as well as regional services. Eliminating or curtailing service in one of the Caroline County routes would significantly affect the performance of the remaining routes. The basic fare on Fred Transit is $1 per boarding. And as far as paying for that in FY16, the average contribution to the county that makes for the trip for Fred is $10.68. For comparison, our research indicates that a trip between Bowling Green and Fredericksburg using Uber will cost a resident $30. And if they were to use a taxi cab, it would be $50. So upon City Council approval this evening, which they are voting on and considering, the per boarding fare is scheduled to increase from $1 to $1.25. And that will become effective July 1, 2017. To provide additional input to the county, we recently distributed a informal survey to the Caroline passengers on our buses. And you've received a copy of that in your board package from county administration. We'll just kind of give you a summary. About 25 passengers who responded spoke in support of continuing Fred service. The vast majority, 88%, use Fred to get back and forth to work. 36% use the service for medical appointments and to go shopping. And 84% said they either do not have a vehicle or are unable to drive because of medical or other reasons. Frankly, I was somewhat surprised, pleased, and moved to see how passionate Caroline passengers were about the Fred service that they were provided. In closing, we value our relationship with the county and believe that it is a benefit to your citizens. We are proud of our record of providing safe, efficient, and economical transportation for the residents for the past 15 years. And we're prepared to work with the county to make certain that we are providing the right service to the right activity centers and for the right price. And we look forward to continuing our productive relationship for the years to come. This concludes my comments. Fred staff is available to take questions from the board. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you. At this time, before we open the public hearing, do you have any questions?
What was your name again, sir? I'm sorry.
My name is Rodney White. I'm the
Mr. White.
Assistant Director of
Okay.
Fred Transit. Also have with me tonight Wendy Kimball. She's our Director sitting here to my right. And Craig Reed. He's our Planning Policy Manager.
Mr. White, did you compile this list of names we have and reasons why people need Fred?
Yes, staff did that.
Staff, did you total them? What is
Yes.
it, like 30 or 40?
It was 25 responses.
25? Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right, I didn't want to count them right now because they were kind of long, but, all right, and most of those people say they ride Fred to work,
Yes.
medical service.
Yes, sir. 88%.
Oh, you got numbers?
Yes, 88%. 88% say they use it for back and forth to work. 36% for medical appointments. And again, 84% say they do not have vehicles, so that's their main form of transportation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
anyone have any questions before we open up? I guess I just have one before we open up the public hearing.
Yes.
King George, a couple of years ago, voted to get rid of the Fred Transit service. And I was just kind of, in talking with a couple of the supervisors that were part of that decision, that they said they didn't have any major opposition, which appears to be a little bit different here. But can you just kind of explain to me, like, as far as the citizens who were, what was your ridership in King George? And what, are we still in contact with citizens? Are you guys still in contact with citizens from King George who aren't? So I guess I'm kind of curious from that perspective, because that happened there a couple of years ago.
Let me get some assistance from Stan.
Hi, my name is Wendy Kimball. I'm the director of Fred Transit. We didn't come with those.
Ma'am, could you?
Sorry. Can you hear me better now?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. We did not come with numbers related to King George tonight. We do hear occasionally from members of the community that they would like to have the service back. We do hear that occasionally, and we've worked in cooperation with Bay Transit to coordinate service with some of the routes there to bring folks into Fred Central so people can connect. But we've not heard anything more than that.
Thank you. Does anyone have any other questions? All right, I'm going to go ahead then and...
Actually, I have a question.
Okay, before Mr. Moore.
Are all of the rates, you know, if you go on one stop, is it $1? And if you're going to ride all day, it's still $1?
That's correct.
Okay.
Per boarding, each time a person gets on or passenger gets on, it's $1.
And that's
Wherever-
entire system-wide, or is that just
System-wide.
Caroline's?
System-wide.
Okay. Do you have other jurisdictions that charge different rates for boarding?
No, we do not. It's system-wide.
Okay. Is that a mandate or just what you've done? Just kind of curious, what's that?
It's what we've done just because it's a lot easier administratively to collect fares from our passengers, so it makes it easier for the passengers and also for our staff.
Okay.
But that's kind of the way most bus systems work, because I took the bus in D.C. and Baltimore, and you get a transfer and you keep going for one fee.
Okay. The federal funding is listed in our board packet, what does that, does it just go to the operating budget? Does it provide a specific amount of basic service? Is that earmarked for something in particular?
So the federal funding primarily is targeted towards operating expenditures, and then we do get some funding for capital expenses, but it's at a higher rate. So for our operating, we're getting 50% of allowable costs covered by the federal government, and then for capital, it's 80% typically.
Does that federal funding come with you have to service a certain footprint, or is it just here, do with which as you wish, or how does that go?
It doesn't have that kind of caveat on it. It is tied to, that funding is tied to Caroline County specifically.
Okay. Can you elaborate on that, please?
The federal government doesn't regulate where we travel within the county.
Right.
So we are allowed to coordinate with the local jurisdiction to determine what the best routing is for our buses. So they don't restrict us in any way.
So if, worst case scenario, we pull out, ultimately your federal funding will decrease because a portion of that is earmarked for this jurisdiction?
So all of the federal funding tied to the county will no longer get that, correct?
Okay. All right.
How do we get that back if it goes away? Yeah, that's enough.
Yeah.
The sigh was enough, that's okay.
Yeah, it is tough. Once we pull out of an area, both the state and the federal government takes a closer look, and they want to have some assurance that we're going to continue service in there, because we have assets basically that span more than the life of 1 year. You know, they span 5 years or 7 years as far as our buses.
Okay, thank you. I'm now going to go ahead and open the public hearing regarding the Fred Transit System. Just like the public comment period, anyone can come down and speak. You have 3 minutes, so please keep within that time frame. So the public hearing is now open, so if anyone would like to come down and discuss, please state your name and your voting district.
Good evening. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my perspective with you. My name is Jan Urquhart. I am a member of Fred Transit's Advisory Board, and I have been a volunteer member of that board since Fred first started operation about 20 years ago. In that capacity, I represent the regional business community, and of course in that capacity I also represent the businesses of Caroline County. Rodney did a great job of sharing numbers with you, but I'd like to share with you from my perspective a little bit about the people who ride Fred. As you well know, Fred is a public-private partnership, and that makes us very different than other transit systems across the country. Most transit systems, we hear about them in the newspaper, they're supported by the federal government, the state government, and often the locality. But what makes Fred kind of a unique animal is that Fred also gets significant support each year, in addition to those 3 sources, from local businesses and other organizations. And that makes us quite unique. And because businesses and other organizations like University of Mary Washington Healthcare are putting in sizable amounts of money per year, they are partners with us in many more ways than just giving us money. And it makes us really much more part of the community, I think, than your average transit system. And as you know, Fred serves the residents of Caroline County, the city of Fredericksburg, Spotsylvania, and King George. Let me tell you a little bit more about the people that Fred serves. Nearly 65% have household incomes under $40,000 a year. And for many, Fred is a lifeline to get back and forth to work, for medical appointments, shopping, and to get to county services. But rather than falling into more statistics, I'd like to share with you some of the comments that we got from the people, and I don't know if you've had a chance to read them all, but I cherry-picked a few of them, because it really tells what Fred means to them in their daily lives, because these will be the people affected by any changes in service. One person wrote, oh, and by the way, when Fred does something like this where they give people opportunities to speak, to write into them, to call or whatever, to get several is a really big deal. And so those numbers that Rodney gave you by getting that kind of response is really huge. So the first person said, I ride the bus to and from work 4 days a week. I am unable to drive due to a health problem, and if I wasn't able to ride Fred, I would have no choice but to move to one of the motels in the Carmel Church, Ruther Glen area in order to be closer to work. Another person said, Fred has helped me in the last 10 years that I've been a resident of Bowling Green. I have no way of getting around if I lose this service. I would have to hitchhike back and forth to work, and I'm scared to do that. This will really hurt me in the process of trying to get to work and make money to pay my bills and take care of my family. Another lady wrote, my niece rides the bus 5 days per week to Goodwill on Market Street in Spotsylvania because she works there. She is mentally challenged. The deviation program that Fred provides for her drop-offs gets her to work in the morning and picks her up in the evening. Cancellation of the bus would be a problem for her, particularly with her disability. Another person said, this will be a tremendous loss to me because this is all I have to get back and forth to work and go to my doctor's appointments and getting around Bowling Green and the Ladysmith area. I've been riding this bus since I've been living in Bowling Green for 9 years, and this transportation takes so much stress off me to get back and forth to work. The bus is so reliable and convenient, this will devastate all of us if it closes down.
Ma'am, could I ask you Could I ask you to wrap it up? We're well over the 3 minutes. We have these, we do have all of these in
Okay,
our, we do
thank
have
you.
all of these in our
Can I
packet.
go ahead and make a couple closing comments?
Yes, sure. Go
Okay,
for it.
thank you. Thank you very much for paying attention to those. I appreciate it. I also wanted to tell you that I'm a member of the Board of Trustees for Mary Washington Healthcare. And in that capacity, I can say that the FRED system is helping our regional healthcare system answer one of the largest problems in healthcare that we face as a region, and that's access to medical care. One of the biggest problems is people being able to get back and forth to the doctors for their care prior to or after being in the hospital. That's the main reason the healthcare system supports FRED as well. So despite its tight budgets, FRED has done a really good job of reaching people and taking care of them, and I hope you will maintain FRED's existing service in the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
David Upshaw, Bowling Green District. I believe that's you, Mr. Siegel. I serve at the pleasure of the board on the board of the Rappahannock Area Agency on Aging. I also serve as a community member on the Board of Trustees at Mary Washington Hospital. The FRED service provides an opportunity for people to have access to services they do not have in Caroline County. If we eliminate this service, we're going to strand some of our residents, some of which are medically necessary as well as for jobs. The other piece of this that I think is important for us to consider is to stay connected. Having the FRED service keeps Caroline County, which is underserved in so many ways, connected to a broader source of resources that we cannot provide to our residents. I would urge the board to maintain the service that FRED provides, that we can work together as a community to keep our residents informed and a part of the services that they need. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, my name is Kevin Koziel. I'm Director of Advocacy and Services at Disability Resource Center. We're a center for independent living that provides disability services to Caroline residents. I'm also on the FRED Advisory Board. I'm here to express DRC's concerns about potentially eliminating or reducing FRED service here in Caroline. Hope this will be useful to you. We can fully appreciate that cuts are being considered in light of some of the factors that are being talked about with regard to questions of value. But for my part, I want to convey to you that we feel that FRED has significant value as the only regularly scheduled, affordable, accessible transportation option for the over 3,500 Caroline residents with disabilities, not to mention their caregivers and family members. For example, over 2,000 Caroline residents have ambulatory difficulties and can benefit from things like FRED's accessible vehicles and driver assistance in boarding. Over 600 Caroline residents have vision impairments and can benefit from things like FRED's auditory stop announcements, things like FRED's policy to permit personal care attendants to ride for free, and the half-fare program also mitigate transportation costs for a group that is disproportionately low income, as you know. In the course of providing services to county residents, we are made acutely aware of the transportation challenges that they face, and we share these. As an example, not too long ago, we implemented a Caroline version of one of our youth programs here in the county because people simply could not get to our center using available transportation. And additionally, I understand that the State Vocational Rehab Agency in Fredericksburg has to close cases with some regularity because Caroline residents cannot access transportation that consistently gets them to jobs. So there's more that needs to be done for sure with in terms of usable capacity. And while we understand why cuts are being considered, we feel that solutions to the lack of affordable, accessible transportation should involve more availability, figuring out ways to increase residents' use of existing options and develop capacity. Going forward, projections suggest that there are likely to be more and more county residents who can benefit from these types of services. So as the board considers cuts, we respectfully hope that it will also consider the potential benefits of expanding affordable, accessible transportation options and increasing residents' use of them. Thank you for the opportunity to provide input.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding the public hearing? Is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this public hearing? One last time, is there anyone else who would like to speak regarding this public hearing? I now declare the public hearing on the Fred Transit closed. Board members, does anyone have any questions or comments for any of the people that spoke? Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Chairman, I think we've got confirmation here from the citizens who came and spoke, and from the letters we've gotten, which is exactly what I've been saying. The Fred system, although it's small and it really doesn't have a lot of buses like a big city would have, it does provide a valuable service. And our $102,000 investment allows many people to get to work, get to the doctor, and things that they stated, as these 25 rider comments state. If you do a little quick math, and we had to pay for all of those people on social services, we would spend a lot more than $102,000, because even at 80/20, it would cost the county a lot more to take care of people at home doing nothing than at least giving them the opportunity to work. Fred is an investment. It's, not a great investment, but it provides a service for others that is truly needed. So I again say we're wasting our time in looking at getting rid of Fred. We should be looking at expanding it. And maybe the real reason is we should be looking at advertising it more and marketing it more to get more riders. So that's my opinion, and
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Forehand?
Again, as a common theme that we've had tonight, I would be interested in looking at ways to, if there's an ability to consolidate. I'm not sure what the planning's been done with the routes in Caroline in light of the discussions of late. If there is an opportunity to consolidate, refine, reduce service, but still provide the service to suit folks that are actually using it, I would definitely be open to hearing those ideas and, again, moving forward to find an equitable solution for everybody. So, thank you.
Mr. Seeley?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spent today at the polls in Bowling Green, which is near one of the main stops for the Bowling Green bus stop, for the Bowling Green stop. I watched 6 buses go by today. Two came that were completely empty. 2 came by with 2 people on it, and 2 came by with 1 person each on them between 8 o'clock this morning and 4 o'clock this afternoon, or 7 o'clock this morning and 4 o'clock this afternoon. 1 person got on the bus at 7, and 1 person got off the bus about 2:30. The empty buses are just, I don't know what to do. I get constituents that are always asking me on Main Street, did you see the full bus? I understand that there are 3,500 residents that could have access, but our ridership seems to be falling to, in some cases, 1 person per hour. We've got the school system that's asking for additional amounts of money every year that we can't provide. And we're talking in terms of hundreds of thousands of dollars every year that they say we don't fund. We've got to start to decide where the funds are going to be allocated to and who's going to use them. Do we spend them on kids in school, or do we spend them on Fred and some other things? But I know that there are some needs, but I just don't know that we have $102,000 in need when you look at the number of buses. I've watched the bus stop, the community services building, be in here for other meetings in the evening, and nobody gets on or nobody gets off. I don't know how to solve that problem. We've looked at continued downturn in ridership since gas prices fell from $4. And the ridership has continued right down with that, down to the point of, I don't know when it stops or when there's more empty buses than there are with 1 on it. But those are the concerns that I've heard, is that there are just a number of empty buses on a regular basis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley. Mr. Underwood?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a pretty kind of touchy subject, but yesterday I was driving home and I recognized this young man walking, and I stopped and picked him up, and it was one of my ex-students, and he had lost his license because he was either drunk driving or went through the machines program, I know. And I asked him, I said, what time do you get up in the morning and how do you get to work? He says, I have to walk. I leave at 4:45 and I have to be there at 7. Yesterday it was 92 degrees. And this guy's walking down the road trying to change his life. And I said to myself, you dug this hole, and now you got to fill it. But I had compassion for that person because he created the issue, but I certainly don't want to make it worse. So I read the board package. I knew this was going to be on the board, and I think we have to look at those people who can't do for themselves. I think that we owe a debt of service to our community. Those folks are working and they are bringing money into the community. So what is the price that we pay? You know, I drive to the airport and I get on a plane and we pay $1,000 to fly me across the country on most flights. And I drive a nice car and I have a lot of luxuries that a lot of people don't have, but I think we have to be compassionate, and I just think this is one of those situations where it's not about the money, but it's about the good that we do. It's about the good that we do. And I believe there's a balance. And I think this is one of the issues that the $102,000 is the price we pay to make our community, our society better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Mrs. Long?
Yes. I feel like what we're looking at here is a good idea that's not working correctly. You look at the track that Fred is running. It's doing a big circle around the outside of the county boundaries, whereas everybody's living on the inside. No wonder we have poor ridership. We have a line that goes into Fredericksburg. People have an hour and a half. If they don't catch the next hookup, they're stuck in Fredericksburg. We have the money in the budget this year. We've approved that budget. My feeling is we need to make this horse run a little more efficiently and to get people places better because the ridership needs to come up. If you tell me we have over 3,000 people who need to use this facility or this mode of transportation, and we've got an average of 20 people riding in a day, then we're missing out on something. So my feeling, or my suggestion to the board, is that we continue for right now, but we need to sit down with Fred officials, we need to get a map, we need to know where people are, and we need to get the Fred bus to the people so that they can use it. Because obviously they're not using it now. And if you tell me the need is there, then we need to meet that need. But we're not doing it with C1 and C2.
Thank you. For me, this is a tough, obviously this is a tough call. I'm going to be just straight up honest with you. If this came to us tonight, based on these numbers, and it was a new program, I don't think I would vote for it. The numbers are not there. I understand what Mr. Thomas and what Mr. Underwood are saying. There is a group of people that are underserved in this county that rely on it. However, that seems to be a small group. I would also like to kind of piggyback on what both Mr. Forehand and Mrs. Long said, in the sense that we need to figure out over the next year, I think what we really need to do, it is in the budget, and we need to seriously take a look at how we could possibly make this more effective. I would like to see myself personally, we have seen over the last year, I know Mr. Seal and I both paid attention to it, we saw a decline in ridership. And we got answers from various reasons as to why that is, lowering gas prices. But I would like to kind of study that. I would also like to see, we have the number of trips. So I think through 6 months, what was it, close to 7,000 trips. So I guess if I come back and forth from Fredericksburg each day, I'm using 2 trips. What I would like to see is a list of, if it's possible from you guys, the names of people that are using it, like as far as the number of people that are using it as opposed to trips. Like as far as I know, we've got 25 names in here or 18 names in here or whatever. I would like to see a name of, are 10 people using it? And that accounts for 20 trips. You know, are 20 people using it? So that's kind of my take on it. I think that we need to become more efficient with it and take a look at it over the year and see what we can do, because this does cost a lot of money, but it also serves, I'd like to know how many people we're actually serving. So that's kind of my take on it.
Can I add one more thing?
Mr. Thomas, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As the folks from Fred said, they've been here since 2002. And the board did go through several route studies and things of that nature to reduce the cost to the county. But I think the reality is, you know, again, and we would all admit right now, because I firmly believe, and I'm sure you believe now, those folks that ride Fred need Fred. It's not, you know, I used to ride the bus for fun, but I was 16 then. You know, now they have to go somewhere. And I think it's on the county to help, since it's a public-private partnership, to help advertise and make sure Fred is used. I don't know if all the people that really, you know, need Fred know about it. You know, Mr. Underwood made a statement about a guy he picked up. Well, I picked up a guy this morning, too, and rode him from about Food Lion to Route 2 so he could hitchhike to Fredericksburg. I didn't even ask him about Fred. I never thought about that. It's only $1. So we're not advertising enough to really take it up. Nancy's right. We already did routes and things of that nature. We cut out the Port Royal route because nobody was using it. So let's advertise and make it a little easier. And if you folks at Fred can help us advertise to make it easier, it's going to be a win-win for all of us. Because I think working people is a lot better than people sitting at home not working. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Mr. Seeley.
if we stayed another, can we get out at any time with notice, or are we locked into a 5-year contract if we approve this tonight?
So currently, you're at the tail end of a 5-year agreement. We entered into that agreement at a time when we were reducing the routes and fine-tuning them, which was probably about 6 years ago. The way it stands now, the agreement is running out. The agreement helps us and it helps you. It helps us as far as we know that the county is supportive of Fred. We can go out and procure buses and know that you guys are going to be there with us to help support that. So we thought a little bit about how to manage it going forward. We could amend the agreement for 1 more year. During that time frame, we could take a close look, as many of the board members have suggested, take a look at the routes, see if they can be made more efficient. And we would definitely want input on that. If we're missing the mark in some areas, we want to make this service benefit the members of the community. So it's important to us, too, that we're hitting the key areas that you think are important. So moving forward, if we don't do something like an amendment, then you won't gain the benefit of having the agreement. And for you, the benefit is at the end of the year, basically we true up. So we come up to you with a budget, and then if we don't fully use all of that funding, you're getting that discounted against the next year. For other areas, we don't have an agreement with them, and they don't gain the benefit of that. So the benefit kind of goes both ways. We get security, and you get a little bit of funding back at the end of the year if we don't expend all the money.
do you all see any avenues for us to gain ridership? I mean, I know we've wrestled with this before, and in the day of budgets and tax rates, I mean, we're where we are. There's nowhere else for us to go, and that is truly the situation. We are locked in with schools on one side and other services, county employees, and I'm just quite truly looking at the declined ridership over the last, we're 50% of what we were 2 years ago.
Right. We looked at, we did take a look at ridership alongside of gas prices, and what we are finding is that it tracks pretty closely, and we have some graphics that can show that. That's not the only thing that's probably hurting ridership, but we are not alone. All the other transit agencies in Virginia are in a similar situation.
Is Spotsylvania or Fredericksburg talking about reducing routes at all?
No, we've actually had some input about increasing service in those areas.
Is their ridership going up, or is their ridership staying about the same?
It's about the same, and there's a little lag because of the gas prices.
So we're all seeing the same thing.
Yes.
So if we extended the agreement 1 year, we would stay at our current price, and next year we could renegotiate all this.
Right. We could then go into it with a better look at, here's what we think we can do, and do better with your input and the community's input, and then we can take another look at it, frankly.
We had already negotiated a really good deal, which you hadn't told everybody about.
Sorry.
But, we're the only locality that gets a true up.
Right.
So that was the deal we negotiated years ago when we were talking
Correct.
about routes.
But we haven't really trued up much. We've pretty much spent what we've had in the budget. Is that
No,
not true?
no,
No.
we have
Every
money.
year we've trued up with you.
Okay.
We're gonna-
Because I'm just concerned about the decline in ridership, and the buses seem emptier and emptier. There seem to be more and more of them. And I know we get the monthly reports from you all. I don't know what else to do at this point. I don't even know what to suggest.
Right.
Because you're coming through town.
Right, and I would suggest, let my staff take a look at it. Let's get input from you and the community, and then if we want to move forward, we can amend the agreement for the year that you've already moved forward with the budget, and then we can come back and during this year kind of work with you and determine what makes sense moving forward.
Ma'am, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned, or someone mentioned earlier on the presentation about Fredericksburg going to $1, City Council considering tonight the $1.25.
Correct.
And you had said the fares you had always wanted consistency with the fares.
Right.
So if the City Council tonight, whatever they decide that they're going to do up in Fredericksburg, if they go to $1.25.
That will be
then
system-wide.
That would be a system-wide.
And that
rate
helps
change.
you. That any money that's going into the fare box is less money that you would have to bring forward. So what the riders are paying towards the service gets discounted off of the amount of money that the county puts in.
Can I ask you, as far as what determines the $102,000 that we pay?
It's a percentage of the overall budget, and it's based on the amount of service that's in this area compared to the rest of the localities.
So it doesn't depend on ridership at all?
No, it's not tied to ridership at all. Well, in that we make a projection of what we think your ridership is going to be.
So, I mean, if I had 30 riders on every bus, or I had one rider on every bus, Caroline County is still paying the same amount of money?
No, you're going to get the benefit of every time a dollar gets put into the till, you're going to get a benefit of that.
Okay.
As they explained it before, they basically finance their buses, and each locality pays a rate based on bus miles.
Right.
So that bus mile route is 102,000 we're getting, but if we had 500 riders on each bus, we would probably pay less than 102,000 because the fare boxes would be
Correct.
fatter.
Correct.
So advertising again to help us get more riders on
Yes.
Fred on your side and our side would help reduce the cost for everybody.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. What's the will of the board?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we extend our contract for 1 year with Fred, and during that time that we study and make improvements to advertising and route.
Pickup, drop-offs, things like that. A whole assessment of the service in Caroline with the goal, and I'm adding to your motion, sorry. With the goal of increasing ridership to a level 2 years ago. I mean, I think if that level were there, I don't think we'd be having this discussion. And I think it would be a very easy decision. It's decayed to the point that it's now a hard decision to make. So I like this approach. Gives us 12 months to make it work. So.
I do like the metrics because it then does give us a goal to shoot at, because increasing ridership is sort of nebulous, but we've got to get to some ridership that we were at that was increased so that we're actually showing some benefit.
So is that your motion?
It's a very long motion.
All right. So the official motion is from Ms. Long, and then I take the second. Okay. So Mr. Forehand seconds the motion. So I have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Nay. Motion carries unanimously.
I want to vote against this motion because I want it to be the full 5 years, but this is the best I'm going to get, so I'll vote aye.
Okay. Thank you. Everyone voted aye. 6-0.
Well, we're going to advertise and get more riders, aren't we? Reverend Upshaw, the carpenter, thanks you.
Okay, next on our agenda, we will move to agenda item number 7. Thank you for everyone who came out tonight for the public hearing. Oh, I'm sorry, 6. We have the rejection of bids for the construction of the Department of Fire and Rescue Logistics Storage Building.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Tonight I'd like to present to you the bids for the Fire and Rescue Logistics Building. They range from $293,000 to $374,000, which was significantly higher than what was budgeted. We budgeted $165,500 for the project. So with that, first I'd like to get the board to reject those bids. We have talked with the county attorney about procurement procedures from this point forward, and he agrees that we should be getting 3 written quotes, and then go through our normal purchasing policy. With that, you should have a memo in front of you. We do have 3 quotes for the building and erecting of the building in the amount of $85,488. I would ask the board to approve that. We did get our 3 quotes. They're attached. In the rest of the building, we actually, when we saw how high the bids actually were, we actually had a team meeting, reviewed everything to determine if we had missed something for the cost to be 100% of what we had estimated, over 100% what we had estimated. Looking at it, the only thing we could find was a difference in insulation of the roof from an R19 to an R25. It's definitely not $150,000 for that. We still believe by acting as the general contractor, we can complete the project within budget. In front of you, of course, is, like I said, the building and the erection. We have site work. We have a small amount of electrical, and then we have the footing that has to be done. So it's really, the majority of the price is really in the building and the erecting and then the concrete. So with that, I would like the board to authorize that as well. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we reject all the bids received for the logistics building and move forward with the county acting as the general contractor.
We've got to do that in 2 motions.
2 motions? All right.
I got some
So
questions
first, let's reject it.
Let's reject.
Yes.
Let's reject the bid. Place it.
We have a motion and a second. Okay. Any discussion on that motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion carries. All right. Now we need a second motion.
Oh, I have a few questions.
Yes, sir.
Stormwater management, necessary or not?
It is, but not to the extent. The site, anything under 10,000 square feet, we kind of go under a local review. We're at 9,998 square feet, so it took us a little while to squeeze the building in there and to meet the requirements, but we were able to do it.
Perfect. I like it. This quote from Champion, this is built or just the steel? And
That's the steel and erecting it. So we have to prepare the site, we have to pour the concrete. Once we can order the building, then they will provide us with a set of design for the footers and the concrete. Once we have that, then we can submit the package. They said it would take about 3 weeks for them to give us a set of construction plans that are signed by an engineer so that we can submit for a building permit. So we'll be working towards that.
I'm looking at this quote and it says labor to erect building not included.
It's not, but that's the 40,000, sir. And if you look up above that, they included the erection cost. Champion, their quote was $52,988, and on the second to last, it says total of $32,500 to erect it. So it gives you a grand total of $85,488. Should be your second page in, well, third page.
Third page in.
Cool. Do we have a pretty good set of specs already created for this?
We did, we actually we sent it out and advertised it for
Okay,
the
that's what
required.
everybody
We had
bid on.
6 bidders.
Everybody bid on exactly the same thing.
Yes, sir. And that's what surprised us, is we had 4 bidders within $10,000 of each other. You know, did we miss something on our end? But we don't see anything. We don't know where $150,000 is. We know there's profit, we know there's overhead.
Everybody's getting busy.
Bonded, right. And it's,
Well,
we were told that by 2 guys.
Lots of
you
work,
know.
I should say.
Yes, sir.
Can I ask one, Mr. Shebel, on your cover letter, we're gonna act as a general contractor, saving the county an estimate of $150,000?
From what the bids came in, yes, sir. The low bid, we received 6 bids, the low bid was right at $300,000.
But if the whole project is $85,000,
It's, no, that's just for the building and the erecting of it. We've got all the site work, we've got all the engineering that's already been done. We've got concrete that's got to go in, sidewalks, aprons, small electrical. Landscaping, that's correct.
well, we bought you equipment for landscaping, so.
That's actually to tear stuff down.
Yeah, that'll help with landscaping. All right, I just found it curious that we were saving $150,000 on an $85,000 project, but it's more than that, I understand. Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Long?
You'll have some flexibility to install HVAC and interior walls and fencing inside. Is that part of your number?
That
or
was
is
phase 2. 165.5 was just to put the shell up.
I thought with all that, that was a little low for.
Yeah, that was just for the shell.
Mrs. Long?
Mr. Shebel, explain this sheet that makes me panic a little bit.
Okay. So that looks like blue scope from here. Is that correct?
Attachment B, schedule of values.
Schedule of values.
Yes, which is blue scope, which is the state contract holder.
So, yeah,
That's to do the entire package. But we're only using the building, the Butler building itself, the materials at $96,242, and then they wanted $61,345 to install the same building.
so
I have a question.
we're not doing this.
No, that's one of my quotes.
All right.
Mr. Seeley?
I noticed that on this quote, they had doors and windows. Is that in the other quote of the erection as well, doors and windows?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Okay, at this time, will entertain a motion, one way or another. We'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion that we proceed with the county serving as a GC for the construction of the fire department, fire and rescue logistics / storage building.
Second.
I have a motion and a second.
Yes, sir.
I think you need to authorize me to sign the stuff that's over 50,000.
This is the only item that's going to be over
Right.
50, so the board's approving. Everything else will be within our purchasing requirements
Right, so that's what I want to make sure they understand. Y'all are approving this 85,000
out of the current budgeted amount.
out of the budgeted amount.
And then we're gonna have multiple under $50,000
Yes,
purchases?
correct.
Right, the
I've got a whole
concrete.
list of
That's how we get to the 165. All the other stuff is underneath the 50,000.
Yeah, my estimate at the moment's 161, 138.
So we can't approve the 161 as a lump.
Well, you've approved 165.5 already,
As
so I've got
budget,
the money.
Right.
Normally, because the aggregate of the project exceeded 100,000, we were required to bid the
Bid the
project.
project out.
We bid it, it was way more than what we can do it for, so it didn't make any sense to do that. So we figured we'd reject those and then build them in-house, and sub each one of those out individually as the general contractor.
Is there, I mean, we're going to fund this. This is more of a process question, because I know places that have gotten in trouble for this. Is there a time frame on us purchasing under $50,000? Like, Mr. Shebel won't go over $50,000 on any purchase, but during a month he can buy 3 things that are $50,000. Do we have any?
I think because we bid this whole project out, and you have bids that were $300,000 on a $165,000 budget,
Right.
we can then back up and get quotes, which is what we've done. And we'll get quotes for everything per our procurement policy. So something that's $10 we're not, but if we got to bid out the concrete, we're going to get 3 quotes.
Yeah,
And the best price on those we're going to get, but then I'm going to sign that, we're going to get the work done, we're not bringing that back to you.
Okay, and that's fine. That's what I expect. But I've had occasions where software I was selling up to $1 million, the CEO could sign off. Anything more than that, the city council had to sign off. He got in trouble for doing 3 $800,000 purchases from somebody else. I'm just wondering if that's what we're protecting. We've already said he can have that money. But in another case, are we exposed to that type of venture? Because you're going to sign them all. Okay.
Yeah, and plus, we would be bidding all those things out. The reason we're able to do this is because we went through a formal bid process, too.
Okay,
And
right.
it was so expensive,
So
we
we already complied with the state purchasing
complied
laws.
with the
We're
purchase
good.
laws, yes.
And that would be considered split purchasing, which is against county policy, if you were to split those different pieces up in the way you're talking. So
That's what I'm
I
talking
can't take this $100,000 project and do 250s.
Right.
From the same contractor doing the same project.
But you could according to our purchasing.
No, you cannot. That would be split purchasing. Mr. Cully wouldn't be able to do that. It's $100,000 through that vendor for that project, so that would have to come back to the board over 50. That's why this is.
You're nowhere near as creative. Come on.
Fran
That's what would
keeps
happen.
us straight on that.
Okay. Okay, I just want to make sure we're aware. You understand what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
So, do we have a motion yet? We have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right. Agenda number 7, which is the discussion on the Caroline Library.
Good evening. I've lost my voice, so I will be brief. The Board of Directors for the library voted unanimously that we would like the Board of Supervisors to consider making us a county library system, transitioning us from a nonprofit to a county library. They voted to ask that you make us a department, which would alleviate us having a board. We would be a department of Caroline County, similar to Parks and Recreation. So that is what we are asking for.
Thank you. Is there anyone from staff handling this?
We can.
Yeah.
I mean,
all right.
I can answer questions. Number one, to become a department would require General Assembly action to add you to code. Shannon, Dole, and Chesterfield operate as departments. The other way it operates, it still has a board, so it's sort of like social services. So they're county employees that don't report ultimately to the Board of Supervisors. And so I think one of the things that they've worked on over the last few years is that they don't have personnel support above the director, it kind of bumps into that 501c3. And so they're just looking to be a part of the overall county structure for grievances and employee services, so to speak. So those are the two ways, and that's what they picked, that they would rather be a department than still have a board over them where everything bangs into that board above the director.
But the board goes away.
No,
if they become a department?
If they become a department, there is no board, that's correct. They're a department head, and the department head reports to me, and I report to you. Grievances work all the way through from the bottom of their employees through just like any other county employee.
I need to say that one more time. The board voted to become a county department, which eliminates the board.
Correct.
Okay.
We voted at our May annual meeting, membership meeting. Yes.
Mr. Black, I spoke to 3 different members on the library board over the weekend to find out some of the feelings of what was going on. And they assured me that they were interested in providing good oversight for their employees, as Mr. Cully just explained. But I said, but we still need our friends in the library. And they said they would be, that's what they want to do. They want to get back to being more community fundraising, friends of the library, and not a boss as such, is the understanding I got from these ladies that I spoke with. And they want to provide the employees with the benefits and the avenues when they have an issue to deal with them. So I personally have no problem with supporting them in this.
Anyone else?
I got it.
Mr. Forehand?
You sure? Can we get a resolution from the library board with everybody's signature saying they approved it, so that, because we're going to have to do we're going to have to get the General Assembly involved to do this, and they're going to want to see a resolution from all of you unanimously and then a resolution from us unanimously to move legislation forward.
We can do that and we already voted unanimously at our May meeting. So at our July meeting, we will have the board members sign that resolution.
It would be incredibly helpful. That way there's no misunderstandings. And then when this goes to the General Assembly, they have all the board members that unanimously agreed, because nobody wants to do something that's not unanimous.
Understood.
Mr. Forehand?
Well, no, we have to get the resolution ready in December. Right, we couldn't do anything till January.
Right.
We go
we
into
can't do anything until next year's assembly.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah, they understand. I had informed them when they contacted me that it would be the takeover, if approved by the General Assembly, would be for July 1/18, to try to make that a clean demarc. So it would work with budget and everything. If the General Assembly approved it, obviously y'all approve it, the General Assembly approves it, would work to that in their June 30th.
I have a handful of questions. You may be able to answer some of these, or if not, what was the purpose for splitting off from the Rappahannock regional system? Way back in the day.
That's before my time. I don't know whether Mr. Parton, who's been here a long time, can speak to that or is prepared to. Yeah, but you've been around, there's a lot of history.
Come on, Alan, you remember.
I really, honestly.
Alan, I know where you came from. The Appomattox regional system
Yes.
services several counties down in the Tri-Cities area.
Darlene probably knows.
Come on,
You bail me out here.
Another person who was in high school in 1980.
I've been involved with the library since I moved to Caroline County in 1976. And I've been involved with the Friends that raises the funding to be able to give the library things they do not get from the Board of Supervisors or from the library system out of Richmond. But we have been before the Board of Supervisors, and I say we. I have served several times as president of the library board. And we have been before the Board of Supervisors in Caroline County twice in the past requesting this same thing, and both times we were turned down. As far as Mr. Black, your question, the Board of Supervisors in Caroline County pulled out of the regional system because they did not want to put in the money that the regional system was requesting.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. If I can make a statement here, I think that's, I know there's a Pamunkey, or what is it, there's another regional system to our south, correct?
It's the Pamunkey Regional Library
Okay.
System,
And,
and that's part of Hanover County as well.
okay. If we could just look into, I'm not saying we'd go ahead and do it, if we could look into what that would cost the county to join one of those regional systems. I believe Westmoreland County, if I'm correct, I don't know if you know that,
Correct.
is part of Rappahannock.
They have a branch in Montrose
Yes.
and in
So,
Colonial
I mean,
Beach.
we have counties that are smaller than us that are part of, I'm not saying it has to be
Correct.
Rappahannock. But the availability to resources, I've been asked that by citizens as to why we are not. The availability of resources in a regional system, whether it be Rappahannock or Pamunkey, it doesn't really matter, I think would be a benefit to the citizens of Caroline County.
Correct. Central Rappahannock Regional Library does a tiered system, is my understanding, for their consortium. And I can get pricing on what level of service. Do they just provide books? Well, I already do that, and purchase it with the money, the funding that you guys give me. But then they can do additional services based on the level of funding. And that's something that you'll need to consider if we explore that option. And you can still do that as a county system. We can become a county system
And
as of now, and then because the other systems are all county systems.
Right.
That are county funded. So it would, if we want to do that, it would behoove us to become a county library first, and then
Sure,
go forward to the Director
That
Mark
would give us time,
Hudson.
though. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight,
Right.
so obviously. Okay. Anyone have any other questions?
I have other questions.
Go for it, Mr. Warren.
Would these employees be part of VRS and things like that?
Currently, the full-time folks already are, but
Okay.
yeah, they would, the change would be the part-time people would become county employees
Okay.
that are not now. They basically work for a 501c3. She's hired by a 501c3, but we do payroll, and so they have some benefits, but they're not at all a county employee. So if they have any issue, and
Right
since I've been
now.
here, there've been some issues.
Right now, we're not
Right,
talking
man,
about
not, yeah, right, I'm not talking moving it forward, but they have these issues and have really nowhere to turn. We don't have the legal ability to help them.
Sure.
Or, you know,
They're a
like I said,
standalone
perform-
organization right now.
Right,
You
and
know
that's
that.
where I think the board's gotten tired of personnel issues, which if you have a lot of them,
Understood.
you can become. But anyway, no, but moving forward, they would be a department, so they would be county employees top to bottom, working through our hiring and procedures and training and all that kind of stuff.
And that brings up two other financial questions, more like, you know, you're looking at, this is like an acquisition. You know, is the retirement system, is it funded correctly? We've had this discussion regarding other subjects.
They're in ours now, so.
It's in ours now. But
So
it would
it's-
just,
Right.
so
It
it's-
wouldn't
that would
cha-
be
it
a
would-
moot point.
Moot point.
And how much of the funding comes from donations, which my fear is, again, this happens, you know, oh, it's a county library now, I don't have to donate to it anymore.
Well,
And that would be one of my fears, is that right now, 40% of your budget is, or whatever, is donations, and
Yeah,
that
right.
becomes 10. And then the balances have to be, serviced by the county, so that would be a concern.
I will alleviate your fears on that, because our budget for donations are $4,000 a year. I don't even budget off that. We do, and people still give us restricted donations. If I restrict them, that's something I've started to do since I took over as director. If, for example, the Flippo Foundation gives us a check and they want it spent at dawn, I restrict it based on what they have requested. And they would still be able to do that, or they could donate it through the Friends. I'll be honest with you, most of our purchases that are done through donations are through the fundraisers and money raised by our different Friends groups throughout the county. They go out and fundraise. If you haven't been Bowling Green Library, our Friends group just bought the second set of shelves to match the funding that you gave me last year. They matched the funds as I told you we would do. So now we're on our last leg, and we're asking for donations for that. So I can tell you, I come from a consortium and a regional library system in West Virginia. We still took in donations, and people are always willing to support their local library.
All the questions I have right now. Thank you. That did resolve my fears.
Mr. Seeley?
I guess I don't mind moving forward, but can we get a resolution for them and then put this back on the agenda to adopt so that we have at least that phase of the paperwork done? Because I think that would enable us to move forward.
Let's have it on consent at the next meeting. Mr. Underwood? Mrs. Long?
There's a resolution with all the
Okay.
board members signing it.
Okay.
From her board, correct.
All right. So,
And then we're going to pursue
so we're gonna,
the regional with the state legislators?
No, I think she's going to check tiering for the regional library. Once we have a resolution from them, we're putting it on consent for y'all.
Right, yeah.
Once we have that, then
We can start doing
somebody will then work with the General Assembly, one of our 3 General Assembly delegates to see if they will carry a bill for us. And the sooner we can get that so they can have it in their list to do would be great. And,
All right. That's what I want to make sure that was part of it.
right.
Right.
all right. Sounds good.
Bring us the resolution from your
Yes, ma'am.
board. Anything else?
Sure, come on up.
I just wanted to add what Mr. Forehand had mentioned. All the county libraries, including the regional systems, they all have friends of the library system. And regardless what they are, they continue to provide the fundraising. That is what the friends are, to provide fundraising, to take care of matters that are needed in libraries that they're not getting the funding from county, state, or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we will move on to agenda item number 8, correct? And that is the discussion of the draft highway corridor overlay district sign standards.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you have before you tonight some draft sign regulations. And I think the cover memo is pretty self-explanatory. Mr. Black and Mr. Forehand have raised concerns about proliferation of signs and other signage issues related to the highway corridors in the county, and tasked us with looking at options to bring to the board for consideration. We looked at a number of sign regulations in other jurisdictions as a part of evaluating ours. We also looked at the process that we used for Ladysmith Crossing, which we developed some sign regulations to address the issues specific to that project, and came up with some different sign standards depending on the type of use, number of uses. And after further discussion, felt that that was a good model to bring forward to the board to look at modifying the sign regulations throughout the highway corridor and the M1 and B1 zoning districts. So in short, currently the highway corridor sign regulations, you're limited to a monument sign, 32 square feet in sign area, unless you get a special exception permit from the Board of Supervisors. We amended that, if you remember, Ladysmith Crossing, we had the shopping center sign, we had the individual parcel signs, and we had a slightly larger monument sign for multi-tenant buildings within, on a parcel of land. We thought that was a good model to use throughout the corridor, so that the next project in would not have to apply for a special exception. We would have those same standards already in place, whether it's B1, M1, or planned shopping center, or planned commercial development. So we think it would do a better job of providing some variety depending on the type of proposed use. It would be more equitable to similarly situated properties, regardless of whether it's zone B1 or M1 within the corridors. And we would use this also as the initial efforts to amend our overall sign regulations so that the signage is more content neutral. There was a Supreme Court decision several years ago. There's a Virginia Supreme Court decision out of Norfolk that says the language on the sign has to be content neutral. So business signs used to be classified differently. Those Supreme Court decisions basically said a sign is a sign. You have a freestanding sign, you can have a wall sign, you can't regulate the content of that sign under the classification of a business or the name of the industry or something like that. So we would start that process with these amendments as well. With that, I'll address any questions that the board may have.
Any questions or?
Just a curiosity, does that sign, does the Supreme Court decision have any bearing on like temporary banners and things like that that are up for a specific purpose?
No, it does not prohibit those, okay? You can still regulate temporary signage. You just have to regulate the type of sign, not the language on the sign.
I think one of the things Mr. Forehand and I both were kind of big on promoting business on the Lady Smith Road corridor, and obviously it would affect the Carmel Church as well. But Mr. Wilson was heavily involved in this process as well to see what was fair and equitable to possible businesses that were coming in. So Mr. Wilson's input has been very valuable in this as well. So Chair will entertain a motion at this point.
I'll make a motion, we send the side ordinance to the planning commission and let them start working on it.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Number, what are we on now? Number 9? Number 9, okay. So this is a request for the joint meeting with school board to discuss the 2019 budget. I'll go ahead and, if you don't mind, we've been working on the 2-on-2s. One of the things that I think sometimes breaks down in the process between us is, the frustration I had this year is sometimes we read the school board's request in the newspaper as far as what they're going to be requesting. And we talked about, Ms. Long, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we talked about better communication between the two boards. And they had talked about their kind of capital budget is done earlier in the fall, and then they have a general idea on their operating budget right around Christmas time, right around December. And Dr. Parker had thought maybe it would be a good idea to kind of let us know in advance of starting a joint, session with the school board, even before we leave for the Christmas break, so that way we'll have some sort of idea going into budget season as to what they'll be requesting. I think that's a very nice idea, because it kind of informs us of what's going to be coming up in the next budget process. So.
What month are you, you talking about in August?
No,
or
December.
September?
December.
It's 4 o'clock on the December regular meeting day.
December 12th. It would be the December meeting.
12th, 4 o'clock.
That's kind of where I'm at.
No, but he wanted to, the reason being is I understand it's way in advance, but with we talked on the 2-on-2, he just wanted to get it out there right now, so that way it is well in advance, so that we know, hey, look. And I would much rather Dr. Parker tell me this is what we're going to be expecting, and the school board, than to read it in the newspaper. Yeah.
It really kind of works both ways. That's a good point from the 2-on-2. We should be a little more formal and make them quarterly, because there are things that go on between now and then. It's not just budget. We could talk about other things. We can't talk to them enough, and they can't talk to us enough. So I'm off for the June meeting, December meeting.
Okay. So
But
let's.
let's do more.
I'll take a motion.
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. All right, now we go to agenda item number,
I want an ice cream cake that night. That's my birthday.
number 11. 10, sorry. All right, I'm sorry. Request from the sheriff to use insurance proceeds to purchase the replacement patrol car. Sheriff Lipp, I think you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. You should have gotten a memo that I sent to Mr. Cully about the vehicles. To make a long story short, we've had 2 wrecked vehicles, and the insurance company gave us like $6,000 for one, $5,000 for another. And we're actually 2 vehicles down, and we're coming before the board to ask for y'all to give us 1 vehicle, and we will give you the $11,000 towards that vehicle because it cost $18,000 to equip such a vehicle. And rather than put $18,000 and try to find a vehicle for $11,000, we don't think that's a good practice. So I'm here before you all to see if we could get that done.
Does anyone have any questions?
I do. In your packet, you said you were going after the person who caused the accident in the snowstorm?
I think that's all part of restitution that's through that. I have not seen any more with it.
Yeah, it was just in your packet. I think it was from Major Mosier.
Okay.
So you are doing that, and it's possible we could defray some of this extra cost?
If we're able to get that, yes, we would.
Yeah, I've asked, as soon as that happened, we tried to do better with insurance and couldn't. And as you know, when you're dealing with a Crown Vic, police car still got a lot of life left in it, but they look at it and go, well, that's worth $6,000. Well, you can't go buy a used police car because a Crown Vic is not, in a Crown Vic patrol car, 2 different cars.
Right.
And you can't go buy one that some other sheriff's office hadn't worn completely out. So you can't even buy one. So it's
Wait. The insurance company wouldn't give us the money for the type of car we had.
No, they
but
gave us
they
what it was
decided
worth.
to give us the money for a standard type of that car?
No, they just said that's what it was worth, $6,000 and some odd dollars change. And I went back and forth with them. I wouldn't even accept the check. And I went back and forth, and Ben and I worked on it, and restitution was really our only choice. We couldn't even go after the person was drunk driving and clearly going plenty fast if you saw how torn up that car was in a snowstorm, and I couldn't even go after his insurance.
What? Who's our insurance for the last?
Vacor.
I thought that was Vacor. Well, we need to talk to them.
Yes, please do.
Because
We
that's
need,
just the
we
way
need
the
replacement
law
that
works.
costs, not
But I mean, that's another insurance thing.
Anyway, it's the way the laws work too. We couldn't go after, only way I can get him is through restitution. Hopefully, everybody will be there because the deputy was hurt really bad and we were, completely without a patrol car, and I don't have a lot of sympathy for somebody drunk driving and in danger. Somebody wrecked in a snowstorm is one thing, but
That's what we got. That's what we got.
for 2 wrecked cars. That's
Sheriff Lipp, what was the value of the 2 vehicles that we,
Well, I think the
based on?
insurance,
Not from the insurance company, but
the values of how much they were when they were new,
at the time of the
well, those were 2011s.
2011?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And they had a lot of mileage to them as they were, but still, we carry them as long as we could.
Right.
But they also had $18,000 worth of equipment on them that got destroyed, correct?
Well, the equipment that we had from that, we used for the newer cars that you're giving us. We do not have the equipment to it, so that's why you see the equipment order that's here.
well, the other thing, they don't make Crown Vics. A 2011
Correct.
Crown Vic, they don't make anymore. They make Ford Tauruses. We're buying Dodge Chargers. Some of this stuff, the cage and the console, some of that stuff won't retrofit in anything either, except another old Crown
But
Vic.
the insurance company won't compensate us for that? And that it's not
Some
correct?
of it, but, that's what we got. I mean, like I said, I was highly indignant that was all we got for that car, because it's a working vehicle. And, we're down a vehicle and a man because of negligence of somebody drunk driving. Hopefully a judge will do something.
How
but
come
it's-
you couldn't go after their insurance? That's the way insurance works.
If you take any money from your insurance company, they're subrogated to your claim, so any money They'll be the ones who will sue the driver of
Our
the
insurance company will
other
sue their
car,
driver.
and they'll take whatever proceeds they get to repay themselves for what they paid you.
See, and that's not fair.
Well, that's the law.
Yeah, that's a law.
And that's.
And it has been for decades.
No, but it hasn't been that long, because the same was true
That's
for health
common
insurance.
law. It's been that way forever.
But for health insurance, if you had 2 health insurances, you used to get paid twice. That changed in my lifetime, personally, I know it.
Insurance is a little different. It's
But
not,
auto
it's
insurance,
not a tort, and it's not, and it's just different.
As a private individual, you could sue, and you could sue for your medical and all those things. But as a county, I don't have any way of going after any of that. I didn't suffer the medical. My employee did. The county's only messed up because we've lost the vehicle, but I can't. Baycorp can't sue them for more than what the vehicle's worth either.
that's the thing. But
No, it's just a property damage claim.
It's just a property damage claim,
but
even
you
though the
said
county's
it's a
lost
law, which
the-
is wrong.
No,
a working
conceivably,
vehicle.
the patrolman could conceivably sue him and get money for his suffering and
Really, I'd
pain
like
and
to
medical
get 2 vehicles, so,
damages.
I am. I'm trying to at least get 2, so I'm trying to meet this halfway, because again, we're out 2 cars and
We're still a little upset over the insurance
Can we,
part.
I understand, so are we.
We can debate that all day, the what ifs, but I mean, can we?
I don't know if Vacorp offers a replacement
Replacement value
policy or
insurance,
not.
right.
We can check into that. It would probably be very expensive if they do, and it may or may not be worth it. I mean, they're in business not to lose money, so they're
You
going to
said that
figure
wrong.
out the
You said
types
that
of
wrong. They're in
claims they
business to
have.
make money. They're not in business to not lose money. They're in business to make money.
But the point is, they're going to know what those things cost as
Yeah.
a replacement, and you
All
know,
right.
they're going to figure the odds.
Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'd make a motion that we accept the $11,825 from the sheriff for the cost for the 2 vehicles, and pay for a new vehicle at a cost of the 43,112 minus the 11,825 for a total of 31,287.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
if I can,
Wait
I
a
know
minute,
y'all
Mr.
want to do
Cully's
this.
got a comment, I
Okay.
guess.
I believe in looking at your budget, you'll have that, you should have that, Fran and I studied your budget from what you've spent through the bills that we approved at this board meeting. I think the money could come from the sheriff's FY 17, what it will be, it'll either be fund balance, but I don't think he's going to spend that, you're not going to spend down to the last dollar. We felt like you would have that 31 in your budget.
And Mr. Chairman, I withdraw my motion and ask that the sheriff uses year-end monies to buy this. If he doesn't have the money, then we will make the monies available so he can purchase that vehicle.
Yeah, it still needs the same motion, it's just not coming out of the fund balance, it's going to come out of, it just gives him come out of his.
We have
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, we have a discussion on approval of a purchase replacement fire engine.
Is this in the budget?
Absolutely not.
So, Chief Loftus, is this the amount we put in the budget for your fire truck?
No, you put 500,000.
And so you're less?
Yes, sir.
So can I make a motion that we approve the fire truck for $484,585 and move on?
I need if I could get a contingency for engineering of up to 25,000 out of fire rescue reserve.
Correct. I'll add that, the 25,000 out of fire and rescue reserve.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion?
What's the engineering contingency?
Anything that would come up in the engineering meeting, if we forgot something, we would have some flexibility to make those changes. Otherwise, I'd be stuck at that price.
Motion is,
I have it in.
motion is second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Hey, Chief, on an unrelated topic, while I've got you here, how are we coming along on the hiring process for the 6?
We've already done testing, and we will start interviews next week.
Very good.
And we have hired, one of our part-time will start July 1. He's taking a vacant full-time position, firefighter Johnson's position.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Do we have a thing to read? Oh, I'm sorry. We have, yes. We have 11A, the Loving, I'm sorry, the Loving marker.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to actually applaud that and see if we couldn't make the plaque read the way that Mr. Loving's been about American Indians, since that's really what the whole argument was.
Mr. Seeley, again, the mother and the sole surviving child of Mr. and Mrs. Loving has the family authority. She approved the text that went on the marker in Richmond. Nothing on the marker in Richmond references black, Native American, or anything, but according to the Commonwealth law in 1958, there were two classifications, white and colored. If you were not white, you were considered colored. In my statement, I again read that Native American was not a racial identity according to the Commonwealth. I know Mark, I know Peggy, I know Mrs. Loving. I know a lot of people in Central Point. It's a complicated issue. It's not my business. It's definitely not your business. We need to let them have what's there. All it says is it was an interracial marriage. The Supreme Court would probably not have taken it up if it was anything else. Let's just leave it at that. I will personally bring Peggy to you to make sure you understand she's in charge. Mothers run the country, not their kids. And there's 3 other kids. So we can't take one kid over the other 2. If you want, I'll bring Tracy in here. It's a difference. There's another one, Sterling. The mother has said what she wanted. Let's do what she wants and leave it alone. It's only up to $2,000. The cost will be less. That's what it costs.
I would like my name removed from being the board member that stopped this from coming, because that is not what happened. I have the email, and I would like you to say that that is not the case.
I will investigate again with DHR as they told
Well,
me.
the email that I sent is here, and based on this, anything else
It
is
says-
just hearsay. So I would like...
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm
Well,
saying.
that's what I'm saying. It's
I'm
written.
saying DHR said it, so
Well,
it's not for me to apologize for DHR.
Yeah, but you're making the accusation at me that I stopped them.
Gentlemen.
You did
I'm not
say
making an
that.
accusation.
Gentlemen,
I'm telling you
gentlemen,
the
gentlemen.
All right, I'm going to make a motion that we approve up to $2,000 to duplicate the marker that went in Richmond that was supposed to go in Caroline in response and respect to Mrs. Peggy Loving Fortune. That's my motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Forehand, do you have discussion?
And I'm sure we can get DHR here if you'd like.
Can we investigate before we spend this, getting that marker moved?
The one in Richmond? Oh,
Or is that off the table?
They don't move them.
They moved the one in front of one of my pieces of property, but it wasn't.
Can you also find out where they would like it positioned so we can make sure we have a
There is actually a pole at 301 and 721 right down the street where it was supposed to go. And at the last minute it moved. So I have spoken to Peggy again, the daughter, and she said that's where she wanted. She had no problem with the text. I'll work through DHR to make sure they don't have an issue with having 2 of the same one. But since we didn't do it here, they don't have funding for another one. I'll have DHR come and she could explain it to you, and we'll go.
I don't need it explained. I just don't like the implication that I've
All right.
done something that was improper, and I did not.
We have a motion.
And the inference. Mr. Chairman, I'm still in discussion.
Okay, sorry.
Okay.
I would just like the inference of, I told DHR they couldn't do it, taken back. Because that is not the case, and the email that I sent clearly does not state that.
Well, I will be happy to inform DHR that that's what you think.
That isn't what I asked.
All right, so we have a motion. Is there any other discussion? If I could just add on this whole thing, I This case is, obviously was pretty important to Caroline. So I think, as far as the board is concerned, I think we need to, we need to be kind of unanimous in going down to the next marker ceremony and, being part of this, because it's a huge thing, it's a huge thing in Caroline, so. Anyway, I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. I am going to need something to go into closed meeting.
We got to.
Do you want to read it or am I? All right. I move that this board convene a closed meeting pursuant to the consultation with legal counsel and briefings by staff exemption of Section 2.2, 3711A, .7 of the Code of Virginia regarding specific legal matters requiring legal advice concerning a contract with the Puminson Creek Regional Jail Authority. I have a
Second.
motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion. Can I get a motion to come out of, I need a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors certify that to the best of each board member's knowledge that only the public business matters lawfully accepted from the open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which this certification applies, and that only the public business matters as were identified in the motion convening the closed meeting were heard, discussed, and considered by the board.
Motion, do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Thomas, do you certify that everything that was said in closed session was what we discussed?
I so certify.
Mr. Forehand?
I so certify.
Mr. Seeley?
I so certify.
Mr. Underwood? Mrs. Long?
I so certify.
And I so certify as well. Could I get a motion to, I guess we're going to adjourn until tomorrow.
No, we've got to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we give our attorney, Mr.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Cully, and Mr. Seeley authorization to finalize the jail agreement
Second.
and sign on behalf of the county.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. Now, I can go.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we adjourn.
Recess.
I'm sorry, that we recess until tomorrow at 6 p.m. for the work session.
Right here, correct?
And emergency services room.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
We are